Welcome to our channel, where we explore intriguing stories from around the world. Today, I'll share a case that remained unresolved for nearly 15 years, demonstrating how sometimes even the most seemingly hopeless investigations can unexpectedly reach a breakthrough. Imagine a once idyllic beach now transformed into a tragic scene where a loving couple met a violent end. Typically, when a crime occurs, authorities respond swiftly, collecting evidence and questioning witnesses to increase the likelihood of a quick resolution. This immediate approach often leads to success, but if the perpetrator remains unidentified, investigations can stagnate, sometimes lasting decades before being shelved due to the expiration of legal deadlines. Yet, there are rare instances when cold cases suddenly take a new turn thanks to unforeseen developments. One such example is the case of Lindsay Cutshaw and Jason Allen, which had sat dormant for nearly 15 years. Despite extensive efforts and a substantial reward for information, investigators faced a major obstacle: a lack of motive, witnesses, or tangible clues. It was a dead end, and few believed the truth would ever surface. 15 years later, however, new evidence emerged linked to another violent crime. It was revealed that at least 4 individuals knew what truly happened that night, yet they had remained silent all these years. Lindsay Cutshaw was born in 1982 in White Eyes, Ohio, into a devout family, her father serving as a pastor. Despite her strict upbringing, she was active and adventurous, engaging in sports and later developing a passion for hiking and extreme tourism. After high school, Lindsay attended Appalachian Bible College in West Virginia, where she often climbed mountains, rafted turbulent rivers, and organized outdoor excursions. Her dream was to create a summer camp to teach children survival skills and outdoor adventure. Jason Allen was born in 1978 in Zeeland, Michigan, also into a religious family. From his teenage years, he was passionate about hiking and wilderness survival. Tall, athletic, and charismatic, Jason possessed natural leadership qualities and was skilled at rallying others to pursue new challenges. Their shared love for adventure and the outdoors brought them together, but their story ended in tragedy. The renewed investigation, aided by new revelations, eventually shed light on what had long remained hidden, proving that even the coldest cases can find resolution when the right pieces come together after years of silence. In 2002, during a hiking excursion in the Appalachian Mountains, Lindsay and Jason first crossed paths. At that time, Lindsay was still a student, while Jason worked as a mountain guide and climbing instructor. Their immediate connection fostered mutual sympathy, and within just half a year, Jason approached Lindsay's parents to seek their blessing for marriage. The parents readily approved, and both families supported the union. Soon after, Jason presented Lindsay with a stunning diamond ring, symbolizing his commitment, a gesture that was later complemented by an additional engagement ring. The couple envisioned tying the knot in September 2004, dreaming of a shared future filled with plans to purchase a spacious home where they could settle comfortably and raise children. However, their dreams were never realized. In the summer of 2004, Lindsay and Jason served as senior counselors at a Christian summer camp called Rock and Water, located in El Dorado County, California. After their wedding, they aimed to start their own similar camp, gaining valuable experience working with young people. On the evening of Friday, August 14th, they decided to take a brief weekend trip to the San Francisco area. They informed their colleagues beforehand, leaving 2 experienced counselors in charge, and promised to return by Monday. Their plan was simple, and their departure in Lindsay's red 2012 Ford Tempo was the last time anyone saw them alive. By Sunday evening, the counselors had not yet returned, but no alarm was raised, as everyone believed the couple would arrive either late that night or early the next morning. However, when the morning roll call was conducted at 8 o'clock, it became clear that Lindsay and Jason were missing, and their absence sparked concern. Since Jason and Lindy remained unaccounted for and their phones were unreachable, their colleagues promptly alerted the authorities and informed the families of the missing couple. Shocked by the news, the parents hurried to the camp, eager to learn more about what had transpired. Everyone trusted that the couple, known for their responsibility and punctuality, would have found a way to communicate if any unforeseen circumstances had arisen. Upon arrival, law enforcement officials began interviewing the couple's colleagues, but an immediate obstacle emerged. No one could determine their exact whereabouts. It was only known that the pair had planned to explore the San Francisco area, and given their love for adventure and outdoor activities, they could have been anywhere, possibly in remote, isolated spots lacking communication or civilization. While the official 2-day waiting period for the missing persons to report back was underway, their relatives and friends refused to remain passive. They launched their own search efforts, reaching out to everyone they knew to gather information about the last contact with the couple. Flyers featuring photos of Lindsay and Jason were distributed, and anyone who might have seen them was urged to respond promptly. By Tuesday, law enforcement had joined the search, focusing on the outskirts of San Francisco and its surrounding areas. Yet the vastness of the region made thorough coverage impossible. A friend then suggested that the couple's fondness for rugged, secluded beaches might be a key lead. This prompted the police to concentrate their efforts on these wild, rocky coastlines, known for their beauty and remoteness. Despite days of searching, no sign of the couple appeared, and hope of finding them alive waned. Then, on Wednesday, August 19th, a patrol helicopter flying over one such isolated beach spotted 2 bodies wrapped in sleeping bags along the desolate shoreline. It seemed unlikely they had simply been resting there. The officers arriving at the scene first noticed a red Ford Tempo parked on a nearby cliff, overlooking a scenic lookout point. From a small shelter for visitors, a steep trail led directly down to the rugged beach. The vehicle was quickly checked against the database and identified as belonging to Lindsay. Following the trail down to the coast, law enforcement found 2 bright sleeping bags containing the bodies of a young man and woman. At first glance, it appeared they might be sleeping, but no responses came to calls or noise. As officers approached closer, it became clear that both individuals showed no signs of life. An initial examination suggested they had been victims of gunshot wounds to the head, and the smell of decay indicated they had been there for more than a day. All their belongings, including mobile phones and wallets, were found nearby, providing potential clues to the tragic end of the couple. Beside the victims, investigators discovered bank cards and cash, which quickly ruled out robbery as the primary motive. The keys to the nearby parked vehicle were also visibly left in place, eliminating the possibility of car theft. This led authorities to suspect that the young people who had been reported missing the previous week near San Francisco might be involved. Their suspicion was confirmed when documents bearing the names Lindsay Cutshaw and Jason Allen were found nearby, though the bodies still needed identification by their relatives. When the parents arrived, they were overwhelmed with grief upon recognizing their children, who until then had been hopeful that the remains belonged to someone else. Consequently, theories involving theft or attempted carjacking were dismissed, as all valuables, including money and keys, had been left untouched in plain sight. Forensic examinations revealed no signs of physical or sexual assault, aside from gunshot wounds to the head. It appeared that Lindsay and Jason were peacefully sleeping at the time of the attack and had no chance to react. They showed no signs of trying to defend themselves, escape, or even leave their sleeping bags, suggesting a swift, targeted act reminiscent of an execution or personal vendetta. This raised the pressing question of who could have committed such a brutal act and for what reason, yet no clear answers emerged. The remote location of the beach, accessible only via a steep trail, made it unlikely that anyone else had been present. No shell casings were found nearby, leading investigators to believe the shooter either took them away or disposed of them in the ocean. The gunfire had been at close range, aimed directly into the victims' heads, as indicated by forensic traces, implying that if casings had not been deliberately removed, they would have been close by. Interestingly, the beach was remarkably clean, except for an empty beer bottle found a few meters from where the bodies were discovered. The victims did not consume alcohol, as they led healthy lifestyles, so the presence of the bottle suggested it might belong to the shooter. The brand was uncommon in the area, likely imported from a neighboring state, making it a significant clue, though its connection to the crime remained uncertain. A theory emerged that the victims might have had a conflict with someone the day before, and that individual returned at night armed with a weapon to settle the score. While Lindsay and Jason were generally friendly with everyone, it was possible they had unintentionally offended someone, either through appearance or other reasons. Additionally, the shooter could have been under the influence or mentally unstable. Ballistics analysis revealed that the bullets extracted from the victim's skulls were fired from a Marlin brand rifle, caliber .45, model 189-94, manufactured by Marlin Firearms. This was a rare firearm, likely part of a collector's arsenal, as such models are typically used for hunting. Its presence was a crucial clue in the ongoing investigation, yet it remained the only significant lead for the moment. Authorities speculated that the perpetrator was probably a male acting alone, possibly a hunter, collector, or firearm enthusiast. The investigation focused on tracing the couple's movements, including their route, contacts, and last known sightings. This task was relatively straightforward, as the couple had taken numerous photographs, and their camera remained untouched among their belongings. Nearby, in a tourist cabin close to the lookout point where they parked their vehicle, there was a guest book where visitors often left notes. The young couple had written entries describing the weekend as one of the best of their lives, filled with love, happiness, and the discovery of perhaps the most beautiful beach they had ever seen. Further evidence revealed that on Saturday, the couple had stopped at a fishing pier about 20 miles from the site where they were ultimately found. This was confirmed by the photographs they had taken there, prompting investigators to visit the area and speak with locals. Many remembered seeing the young couple traveling in a red car, searching for a place to stay overnight. However, due to August being peak tourist season, all nearby hotels were fully booked, as most travelers reserve accommodations well in advance. After failing to find lodging, the couple dined at a local restaurant, wandered around the area, took several more photos, and then set off again in the evening. Witnesses described them as friendly, engaged, and appearing happy and carefree, with no signs of conflict or suspicion. Notably, the beach where their bodies were discovered was in a protected zone where camping was forbidden. Since they couldn't find a place to stay, the young people chose to settle on the beach, using their sleeping bags instead of setting up a tent. They believed that on a warm August night, in a secluded spot, they faced no threats and planned to leave at dawn to return to their camp by the water, as they had promised. This information helped narrow the window during which the couple was taken from life, likely between 11 o'clock on Saturday night and dawn on Sunday. The investigation into their disappearance was progressing, with authorities urging the public to share any relevant information. Certain details, especially the results of ballistic tests, were kept confidential to prevent alerting the suspect and prompting a hasty disposal of evidence. Initially, suspicions centered on a local drifter who frequently slept on that beach and had been seen nearby the evening before the incident. When witnesses identified him, the homeless man was quickly detained, taken to the station, and questioned. The 57-year-old suspect lacked an alibi for the night in question, but evidence to confirm his involvement was inconclusive. The primary obstacles were the absence of the weapon used and the mismatch between his DNA and that found on a beer bottle discovered at the scene. By 2006, the investigation had stagnated for nearly 2 years, with little progress or clear direction. In spring of that year, authorities decided to release details about the weapon involved and to renew efforts by appealing to potential witnesses, offering a reward of $50,000 for information leading to the perpetrator. This appeal generated around 1,000 calls, but most did not contribute significantly to the case. During this renewed inquiry, law enforcement focused on a 26-year-old man named Sean Gallen, who was identified by several locals. They reported that Gallen collected firearms and bladed weapons, often behaved aggressively, and was involved in conflicts, threats, and property damage. He had a prior record for disturbances and substance-related offenses. Although he possessed an extensive collection of weapons, the specific rifle used was not among them. Attempts to verify his whereabouts from 2 years earlier failed, and his DNA did not match the sample on the beer bottle, leading to his release. Meanwhile, another suspect, a different aggressive drifter, drew attention. Joseph Henry Burgess, age 61 at the time, was often seen armed and intimidating local residents. Known for ranting about divine commands, Burgess had a history dating back to the late 1970s in Canada, where he wandered aimlessly. In 1978, he joined the religious group called the Children of God, presenting himself as deeply devout and fanatic. His conflicts with two young individuals escalated into violence, resulting in their deaths, each shot at close range in the head. Bodies found on a beach, wrapped in sleeping bags, as if taken while they slept. When police arrived, Burgess had already disappeared. Despite numerous clues linking him to the crime, he could not be convicted because he had fled illegally to the United States. Burgess managed to evade capture for nearly 25 years until authorities finally connected him to the double homicide in California. In the spring of 2017, a tragic event unfolded in Forestville, California, leaving a lasting mark on the community. On the night of March 14th, gunfire erupted inside the Gallen family residence, prompting neighbors to urgently call law enforcement. The victim was 35-year-old Seamus Gallen, and the assailant was his older brother Sean. An intense argument between the siblings escalated when Sean, under the influence of illegal substances, seized a firearm and fired 3 shots into Seamus. The police recognized Sean's name from a prior investigation. He had been detained as a suspect in a double homicide on a nearby beach, but was released due to insufficient evidence. Since then, he had been cited twice for property damage and making threats, though only fines were imposed. It was also known that Sean was an avid hunter with a hobby of crafting knives and other edged weapons. Those close to him described him as antisocial, aggressive, and unpredictable. After the shooting, Sean attempted to escape but was quickly apprehended. Law enforcement then decided to revisit his possible involvement in a crime from over a decade earlier. His social media profile revealed much about his mindset. He posted pictures of a large collection of weapons and spoke of having telepathic and extrasensory abilities. According to his posts, he believed he was on a special mission, receiving assignments from space, signs of a disturbed mind. Police suspected that Sean suffered from serious mental health issues. He stubbornly refused to cooperate, spoke incoherently, and insisted on his innocence. Further investigation into his online activity uncovered a significant clue. On his deceased brother's social media page, detectives found messages dating back to 2006, when a $50,000 reward was offered for information about the double homicide. Sean's former girlfriend had messaged Seamus, suggesting she could claim the reward by turning in her ex-boyfriend. Both knew the truth, but remained silent. Unfortunately, questioning either was no longer possible, as Sean had been shot and Seamus had died in a car accident 2 years earlier. In an unexpected turn, Sean initially denied any involvement and refused to speak. However, when detectives showed him the messages between his former girlfriend and his brother, he surprisingly confessed. He began recounting the events of that night in detail, shocking law enforcement. Despite the passage of more than 13 years, Seamus vividly remembered the night he left his home with a rifle, intending to hunt in a wooded area. He wandered aimlessly for hours before descending a trail to a remote beach, which he described as a place to escape and reflect. As he strolled along the shoreline, the observer noticed 2 luminous sleeping bags approaching in the distance. Upon closer inspection, he recognized a young man and woman peacefully resting inside. He paused, watching them for several minutes, until suddenly a voice seemed to echo in his mind, urging him to end their lives. Sean claimed this was a command from space that he could not ignore. He then pressed the barrel of his rifle against the young man's head and pulled the trigger, awakening the woman. Before she could grasp what was happening, a second shot ended her life as well. Afterward, Sean collected the spent casings, placing them into an empty beer can he had drained earlier. Later, he reported tossing the can into some bushes in his father's backyard, where he also handed the rifle to his father, requesting it be hidden. His elderly father, unasking questions, buried the weapon in the dirt floor of the cellar in their old barn. Remarkably, Sean's account was confirmed when investigators found the rifle at the collapsed barn site and the beer can with casing still hidden in the overgrown bushes behind the house. The fact that Sean's father had died in 2009 and the property had fallen into neglect helped preserve these evidence items. A bottle found on the beach was later determined to have no connection to the crime, despite initial suspicion. A forensic psychiatric assessment revealed that Sean claimed voices in his head commanded him to commit violence, asserting he was unaware of his actions. His defense argued that he was mentally ill and unfit for trial. However, qualified psychiatrists concluded that, although Sean suffered from various mental disorders worsened by alcohol and drugs, he had acted intentionally. He had carefully planned each step, knowing exactly how to proceed and how to conceal his involvement. He first killed the young man, understanding that the woman would be unlikely to resist, and then took the casings with him, entrusting his father to hide the rifle. Despite his mental health issues, experts determined Sean was competent to stand trial and accountable for his actions. What was particularly surprising was that his parents, brother, and former girlfriend either knew or suspected his involvement yet failed to report him. The trial took place in spring of 2019, nearly 15 years after the crime. On June 17th of that year, Sean Gallen was sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, along with an additional 94 years for the death of his brother. Currently confined in a specialized detention unit for inmates with severe mental health issues, he continues to insist that he hears voices and displays aggressive behavior. As a result, he remains under constant supervision to prevent any self-harm or harm to others nearby. It is important to note that the motive behind the double homicide was never clarified. The perpetrator simply observed the couple sleeping on the beach and decided to end their lives without any apparent reason. On January 22nd of 2023, a sanitation worker was paralyzed after rummaging through a trash container near Columbia Park. His search led him to a sealed blue suitcase wrapped with black tape and surrounded by several garbage bags. Inside, he discovered a woman's body, easily recognizable because her head was visible through the open lid. Frightened by the gruesome find, he drove several blocks away and reported the incident to the authorities. The Capitol Police swiftly responded, dispatching officers to investigate the scene. Upon arrival, the officers encountered a disturbing sight. The corpse was cradled within the suitcase and was carefully removed for further examination. The victim was identified as Valentina Trespalacios. Initially, the body showed no signs of violence, such as weapons or dismemberment. Further investigation revealed that, upon opening the suitcase, detectives found the woman wearing pajamas with a belt, suggesting she had been attacked while sleeping. A black cardboard box nearby contained items that aided in her identification, including a student ID, a password used for official applications, and various personal belongings. The presence of these documents was unusual in such cases, prompting investigators to consider their significance. The police contacted Valentina's family, who confirmed she had been with friends on Saturday, January 21st. Forensic analysis showed she had been struck multiple times on the head, with additional injuries, including bleeding from the right side of her tongue and 5 cuts around her neck, indicative of strangulation. Valentina Trespalacios was born on December 16, 2001, in Bogotá, Colombia. She studied at the Faculty of Commerce and International Business. An avid music lover from a young age, she earned a professional DJ diploma and quickly gained recognition for her talent and musical intuition. Her career began 3 years prior, leading her to perform internationally and build a network of friends across borders. She had the opportunity to share stages with renowned musicians and toured over 20 cities within her country, showcasing her skills and achievements. Valentina had gained recognition through her participation in major international events, performing at festivals and touring across Colombia, Chile, Mexico, Brazil, and Peru. Those close to her believed she had a promising future, as she was highly sought after and traveled extensively within her country. She often dominated top nightclubs, passionately pursuing her career in music. A cheerful, smiling young woman, Valentina enjoyed socializing and sharing her performances on social media, where she kept her followers updated on her daily life. In the realm of electronic music, she was recently acknowledged as an outstanding amateur DJ. Her online presence often highlighted her rising popularity in nightclubs and her personal life, particularly her relationship with an American named John Poulos, whom she met online. Over time, their communication improved, and what initially was a casual connection evolved into a romantic partnership, despite her initial lack of interest in long-term commitment. John Pulos, a resident of the United States, became deeply involved in Valentina's life. He sent her money to fund cosmetic procedures, including lip injections with hyaluronic acid and later enhancements to her cheekbones. He even suggested surgeries like silicone breast implants, which she underwent, transforming her appearance and making her the talk of their social circles. As their relationship deepened, John regularly transferred funds and eventually proposed marriage. Originally, Pulos planned to move to Colombia to live with Valentina, but she remained cautious, suspecting his envy and obsession. He had even hired a private investigator to monitor her contacts and activities. Valentina's family also grew suspicious of his intentions, expressing concern over his controlling behavior. Despite these worries, John was determined to spend his life with her, and by January of 2023, he was actively preparing for marriage, organizing paperwork, and renting an apartment in northern Bogota, where he intended to spend weekends with her until they found a permanent home. On Thursday, January 19th, Pulos arrived in Bogota around 8:53 in the evening. On surveillance footage, a man was seen entering an apartment building alongside a blue suitcase that closely resembled the one used to discover Valentina's body. John Pulos was the first individual identified after this unsettling discovery, as he was also the last person known to have seen Valentina alive. Efforts by investigators to contact him resulted in his calls being directed to voicemail. Valentina's relatives described Pulos as a calm and considerate person, and his intentions to marry her were obvious. Despite their initial doubts about his involvement, these suspicions were dispelled when authorities arrived at the rental apartment, only to find that Pulos had already left and was not present on Monday, January 23rd. Following Valentina's death, Pulos deleted his social media profiles early the next morning, becoming the sole suspect at that time. The breakthrough came when investigators analyzed hours of security footage from the building's cameras, covering the period from Friday evening through early Sunday morning. Law enforcement in Colombia, including the prosecutor's office, scrutinized footage from locations where Valentina and her partner had been, as well as the trash bin where her remains were later disposed of. This evidence, combined with numerous WhatsApp conversations, played a crucial role in reconstructing Valentina's final hours. On January 20th, she and Pulos had arranged to meet. For example, Pulos arrived a day earlier on the 19th and moved into the apartment where they planned to start their life together. That same evening, after texting Valentina, they argued because she was at a party with friends and hadn't expected him to visit. He inquired about whether any men were present at the gathering, which she denied, and they had agreed to meet the following day. Before their meeting, Valentina had planned to visit various salons to care for herself, including getting her eyelash extensions and attending hair appointments. However, on January 20th, they couldn't see each other due to their disagreement. It was only later that evening, when surveillance cameras monitored Valentina's apartment parking lot, that authorities confirmed their presence there. At 6 o'clock in the evening, Pulos was seen packing her belongings, and they moved to a different apartment, beginning a new chapter in their lives. Valentina's journey across the country was filled with emotional farewells, including a heartfelt video call to her mother, in which she said she was returning home. Surveillance footage captured her accompanied by Pulos, who had hired a vehicle to transport her possessions. The two entered the new apartment with their belongings at 7 o'clock that evening, marking a significant moment in the sequence of events leading up to her tragic fate. On the night of Saturday, January 21st, Valentina shared a series of videos with her mother, documenting their move and various activities around their new apartment. These clips showed them completing the relocation and engaging in everyday routines before returning to their new home. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, they settled in, and by approximately 3 a.m., the couple arranged a taxi to take them to a nightclub in southeastern New York, where Valentina was scheduled to perform 2 hours later. They arrived at the venue roughly at 4 a.m., and Valentina began her performance almost immediately. During her set, John Pulos stayed close by her side. By about 5 a.m., Her act had finished, and Valentina, holding hands with John, headed to the club's office. There they encountered the owner of the establishment, his spouse, and her companion. Valentina's friends hadn't seen her since they left the club at 6 a.m., but her mood appeared uplifted, her smile was radiant, and everything seemed to be going well. Later, Valentina contacted a friend by phone, mentioning she had no plans to go anywhere that Saturday. She said she would probably stay in the apartment with her partner, and later they might either dine out or prepare a meal together at home. The last time she spoke to her friend was around 9 p.m. during a video call. Valentina's mother, Laura Hidalgo, revealed that her 13-year-old son was the last person to speak with her via video chat. During that call, Valentina was in bed with John, both appearing happy. On January 21st at 10:43 p.m., surveillance footage captured Valentina and John inside the building. In the video, Valentina is seen peering out from the apartment door while John stands in front of it, appearing pensive and somewhat intimidating, pacing back and forth with occasional grimaces. He orders the elevator to go down and fetch a delivery. The following morning, on January 22nd at 9 a.m., the same cameras recorded John leaving the apartment with 2 bags of garbage. Valentina was nowhere to be seen at that time. He drove to the parking area, loaded the bags into a silver car, and then returned to the apartment to retrieve 2 suitcases from the trunk of a vehicle. One of the suitcases was covered with a gray blanket, which also concealed Valentina's head. At 10 a.m., he placed the suitcases into a shipping cart, with the blanket-covered one on top. After parking the car, John checked the surroundings to ensure no one was nearby, then quickly returned to the vehicle. He glanced at the mirror, took a sip of water, and struggled to lift the heavy suitcase, finally placing it in the trunk. The other bag was next, and he then drove away. Surveillance footage showed the car moving through various city locations throughout midday. By then, it was clear he was searching for a suitable place to abandon the suitcase. Around 3 p.m., the vehicle entered a park and parked near some garbage containers. On a certain day, the driver stepped out of the vehicle and approached a nearby container. Carefully observing the surroundings to ensure no one was watching, he retrieved a suitcase that appeared unusually large and then discarded it into the container. Afterward, he returned to the car, removed a bag, and disposed of it in a trash bin, closing the lid securely before leaving the scene. The vehicle then continued westward until reaching El Dorado International Airport. The last confirmed sighting of an individual named John was at the airport around 4:30 in the afternoon. On Monday, the 23rd of January, the Ministry of Security announced a reward of $1 million for any information leading to the capture of those responsible for the death of Valentina Tres Bazos. Colombian authorities enlisted Interpol's assistance to issue an arrest warrant after the suspect Pulas fled the country without explanation. He was also the last person known to have seen Valentina alive. The following day, the 24th of January, Panama's National Police reported apprehending Pulas at El Dorado International Airport while he was attempting to travel to Turkey. Efforts to gather answers about Valentina's death intensified, and Colombian officials swiftly began deportation procedures. Over 14 criminal investigation specialists contributed to the case, meticulously collecting evidence. Their efforts included analyzing more than 300 hours of security footage from various cameras, a task carried out in collaboration with the country's prosecutor's office. A significant breakthrough occurred after Pulas's arrest when Valentina's mobile phone was found near the airport by a security guard. The guard had noticed the device lying on the grass near a gas station and picked it up. Believing it was unclaimed, he took the phone home to sell it, unaware that it belonged to Valentina. Later, his wife, upon seeing the phone's wallpaper images, recognized the girl as the young woman found deceased in the trash. She called her husband in distress, revealing that the photos matched those circulating on social media and the victim's body. Unfortunately, the phone had already been prepared for sale, making it difficult to retrieve crucial information that might have been helpful. Following this, the driver who had transported the couple to a nightclub in the southern part of the city provided his testimony. Before entering the vehicle, Poulos paused briefly as Valentina exited and then got into the car. She suddenly screamed, claiming she had written something on the driver's phone. The driver looked at her in shock, then checked his device and discovered a message from Poulos warning him in Spanish that he was in danger. Concerned, the driver asked Valentina if she was okay, but her response was uncertain. Poulos then entered the vehicle and asked, "Are you okay, John?" As Valentina and the driver conversed in English during the ride. The driver inquired if they were bilingual, to which they responded affirmatively. Poulos remained silent but continued communicating with Valentina via WhatsApp after leaving around 4 in the afternoon. In the course of events, the driver accompanied a couple to a nightclub but later forgot about the incident until he was informed of the young woman's passing several days afterward. The discovery of Valentina's open WhatsApp session, accessed through her friend living in Carta, became crucial evidence. The friend brought the computer to the prosecutor's office in Bogota, revealing conversations that shed light on what transpired. Among the messages, it was noted that the friend had seen a suitcase containing Valentina's body, which was reportedly present at the scene. On the same day Valentina was in Bogota, she received a message from Poulos along with several selfies featuring his luggage. The suitcase John had brought was later identified by authorities as the one found in a container, though its color remained indistinct. It remains unclear why Valentina left her WhatsApp session open on her friend's device, but these messages helped investigators piece together the events of that night. Forensic analysis concluded that Valentina died from asphyxiation caused by a tightly tied rope. Signs of violence on her body suggested she had been subjected to physical abuse before her death. The forensic experts also determined that she likely passed away during sleep, as she was found wearing pajamas, supporting this conclusion. There was undeniable evidence of John Poulos' presence at the scene. The indictment stated that he refused to accept responsibility for Valentina's death, citing the current circumstances and efforts to hide evidence. He claimed that violations occurred during his arrest in Panama, where he lacked legal representation and language skills, which prolonged the hearing beyond 5 hours. Poulos' involvement was linked to his relationship with Valentina, and after the incident, he attempted to disappear by deleting his social media accounts. Born on the 19th of May, 1987, in Wisconsin, Poulos had 3 children and was previously married. His criminal history included charges related to violence against women, including a restraining order against his ex-wife. Reports indicated that he frequently visited pornographic websites, spending roughly 5 or 6 hours daily browsing. A woman who had sent him money claimed that he often behaved bizarrely, engaging in fantasies and recounting ghost stories. Another witness, a model from Texas, recounted ceasing communication after Poulos made a disturbing comment involving jealousy and death. He had asked her if she would talk to him at a bar, to which she refused, and he responded that one of them might die due to jealousy. The witness noted that despite his outward appearance, Poulos' behavior was often peculiar and unsettling. Valentina had sent money to a mysterious figure she never saw on video, as his communication often seemed strange and unpredictable. It's crucial to recognize that John exhibited certain behaviors towards his victims, notably reaching out via social media and persistently sending money. His attitude towards women as possessions was an early warning sign that many initially overlooked, believing they could be bought with cash. This neglect of warning signs created a dangerous situation, allowing the victim to unwittingly fall into his trap until his own mistake exposed him. Authorities believe John mistakenly thought Colombia's waste disposal system was similar to that of the United States, where he had lived. He assumed that waste in containers would be eventually discarded, not realizing that local recycling workers and street vendors often sift through trash to find items for sale or reuse. Currently, John Poulos is held in a private detention cell in Bogota, and investigators are working to connect all evidence to the crime, aiming to uncover his motive behind the tragic murder. Under Colombian law, such a crime can carry a sentence of up to 50 years in prison. A specialized task force, coordinated by the National Police and the Attorney General's office, is gathering material evidence to clarify the case. These incidents highlight how social networks can be perilous when forming new connections. Valentina believed she had found love and companionship, but like many others, she underestimated the risks, thinking such tragedy could never happen to her. Harold Sasko, known as Hal, was born on September 11th, 1961 in Taville, Florida, and was one of 12 siblings. His family described him as responsible and dependable, always ready to help with household chores and maintaining order. After finishing college, Harold opened his own pizzeria, and within 2 years he expanded by launching a second restaurant. This success prompted his move to Lawrence in late 1990s with his wife Hannah and their 3-year-old daughter. Not long after, he opened a third restaurant in Topeka. Harold's dedication to his business was intense, and his focus on work often overshadowed his personal life. His wife believed he should devote more time to his family, as he was not only a businessman but also a husband and father. This imbalance eventually caused serious tension between them, highlighting the challenges of balancing professional ambition with family responsibilities. When his wife could no longer bear the loneliness, they decided to part ways. Harold was a dedicated member of his church community and took pride in being both a man of faith and a respected figure locally. Those around him knew him as a kind, caring individual and an exceptionally organized manager. His reputation made it all the more shocking when, on January 17, 2014, he suddenly vanished without warning. The story of Harold's disappearance begins on an ordinary Friday with the weekend just ahead. Like many others, he was preparing for his day, but when his colleagues arrived at the pizzeria where he worked, they found the establishment eerily silent and deserted. Usually Harold would be the first to unlock the kitchen, yet he was nowhere to be seen. Days passed without any word from him, prompting his co-workers to contact authorities and request a welfare check at his home on West 26th Street. Later that day, a police officer arrived at Harold's residence. Upon knocking, there was no response, and when the officer looked through the front window, he saw no one inside. Concerned, the officer entered the house to investigate further. Inside, he discovered a grim scene. Harold was lying face down on the floor, calling for backup. The officer quickly realized the man was Harold, and the sight was horrifying. Harold was covered in his own blood, already unconscious, and appeared to have been dead for several days. The scene revealed signs of a violent struggle. Harold's hands were tightly bound behind his back with zip ties, and his legs were also restrained. Most chilling was the deep wound across his neck, which had shattered the collarbone, indicating a brutal, fatal cut. The severity of the injury left no doubt that Harold had no chance of survival. Nearby, officers found empty bottles, a phone, and a laptop that did not belong to him. His car was missing from the driveway, adding to the mystery. Strangest of all was the word freedom, hastily scrawled across the wall in Harold's blood. The police investigation quickly drew increased attention from neighbors, whose curiosity they used to gather more information. It emerged that Harold was not living alone. He was believed to be sharing his home with a young woman he referred to as his stepdaughter. This detail proved crucial, as it indicated there was someone close to Harold who knew him well and was present at the crime scene. Over time, authorities focused on this individual, hoping to uncover the truth behind Harold's sudden and violent end. Sarah Gonzalez Milan, an 18-year-old woman, had been living with her stepfather for the past 2 years. One day, she suddenly vanished without a trace, prompting immediate concern among authorities. Finding her quickly became a top priority, as investigators had no clear idea of her whereabouts or what might have happened. She could have been taken against her will, become a witness, or simply disappeared for reasons unknown. Recognizing the urgency, law enforcement reached out to her family and friends for any information, offering a reward of $1,000 for helpful tips. 3 weeks later, on February 8th, a funeral was held to honor her memory. The community was encouraged to assist investigators by sharing any details they might have about her disappearance in hopes of uncovering the truth. Sarah was born on July 9, 1994, in Topeka, Kansas. Raised in a close-knit family of 5, she had a brother and sister. Known for her gentle and shy nature, she was homeschooled for many years, which limited her social circle outside her neighborhood. Despite this, her upbringing was stable and loving, and she maintained a close bond with her sister. However, her life took a difficult turn during her teenage years when her parents decided to divorce, a period that deeply affected her. Sheltered from many outside influences by her parents, Sarah was naive and vulnerable. Sadly, she experienced inappropriate behavior from a neighbor, which escalated to abuse. This traumatic event marked a turning point in her life, altering her personality and behavior. She began to act out, sneaking out at night and associating with a rougher crowd. To cope with her pain, she turned to alcohol and illicit substances, seeking relief from her emotional suffering. It seemed she no longer felt comfortable in her family home, seeking solace elsewhere. During this turbulent time, she found work at a local pizzeria. Initially, her role appeared routine, but rumors circulated among staff that the manager, a man with a questionable reputation, preferred to hire young women he found attractive. Sarah would start her day early, work long hours, and often spend nights drinking before returning home. Reports suggest she was rarely sober at work, sometimes nearly losing her job due to her condition. Despite these issues, she managed to keep her position, largely because the manager, aware of her vulnerability, felt sympathy for her and offered support. Tragically, her struggles and the circumstances surrounding her life made her particularly susceptible to harm, emphasizing the importance of understanding her story and the events leading up to her disappearance. One evening, Sarah endured yet another traumatic incident when a man attacked her, leaving her with scars that would linger long after. To make matters worse, he also inflicted burns on her with cigarettes, shattering her already fragile mental state. She withdrew from her daily life, ceasing to go to work, losing contact with friends, and sinking into a deep, dark depression. In her despair, she made a desperate attempt to end her suffering, but fortunately, her family discovered her in time and called for help. After spending 5 months in the hospital, Sarah gradually recovered, supported by the love and care of her family and friends. Among the messages of encouragement she received, one from her former employer stood out. He offered to serve as her personal guide or protector, suggesting he could take her out, listen to her, and help her navigate her feelings. Feeling isolated and vulnerable, Sarah eventually accepted his support. During one of their walks, she confided in him about her entire story, including her painful encounters with others and her struggles with alcohol. Hearing her story, he suggested she leave her family home, proposing she live with him. Although the idea seemed questionable, Sarah, feeling lost and hurt, saw it as a potential escape from her pain. Moving in with him brought a brief period of stability. She found a new job far from her previous workplace, adopted a dog, and even contemplated attending college. However, her mother was deeply suspicious of the situation, finding it strange and concerning. Every attempt to discuss Sarah's circumstances ended in heated disagreements, further distancing mother and daughter. Her mother, Michelle, doubted that Hal's intentions were entirely innocent, suspecting that her daughter, vulnerable and naive, might not see the true nature of his motives. After Sarah's parents divorced, her father cut off all contact, leaving her to cope with the void. To complicate matters, Hal later asked Sarah to call him Gad and falsely told neighbors that she was his stepdaughter. Eventually, her colleagues learned about her living arrangement and questioned her relationship with Hal. When asked, Sarah insisted he was merely a friend. Yet, from an outsider's perspective, it was unsettling that a man in his 50s had taken in an attractive, troubled 18-year-old girl. As Sarah grew more comfortable in his home, Hal began setting boundaries and expressing his views on life, especially after she turned 18. His behavior grew increasingly alarming as he started purchasing illegal substances and alcohol, joking about their use and even bringing up topics related to dating and relationships. Sarah's relationship with Halal extended far beyond the boundaries of a typical bond. He meticulously kept track of everything he purchased for her: alcohol, illicit substances, cosmetics, and even rent, intending to make her feel beholden to him. He insisted she could only leave once she repaid her debt, creating a sense of entrapment. After turning 18, Sarah succumbed to his persistent advances, transforming what was once a paternal connection into a sexual relationship. This disturbing situation persisted for 10 months, during which she reportedly engaged in intimacy with him several times weekly. Her only escape was to numb herself with alcohol and drugs, which only deepened her financial obligation to him as he exploited her body for his own gratification. Halal's treatment of Sarah was both demeaning and manipulative. He often criticized her appearance, once commenting on her nose and offering to fund plastic surgery, an offer she reluctantly accepted due to her low self-esteem. It was evident he viewed her as his property rather than as a person with feelings. He financed her gum implantation and set his sights on obtaining breast implants, surgeries that cost a total of $116,000, which she was expected to repay when able. Feeling trapped and powerless, Sarah faced constant threats from him, including warnings about his connections should she attempt to escape. His intimidation worsened her mental health, leading her to be prescribed antidepressants, which she would later have to pay for, further compounding her trauma. Over time, Sarah's mind grew increasingly clouded by abuse and depression. She found herself repeatedly teetering on the edge of despair. Just when she believed she had found someone she could trust, that person revealed himself as another abuser. Frustrated and desperate, Sarah's response was drastic. After visiting a pet store, she bought a rabbit, signing a waiver before taking it home. That very evening, a manager from Halal's pizzeria, visiting for dinner, was shocked to discover a carcass of a rabbit in the refrigerator instead of beverages. Sarah admitted responsibility for killing the pet and revealed that she had killed other animals before. The manager, taken aback, stayed for dinner but left with a sense of unease, an ominous warning about her potential for violence that was unfortunately ignored. The critical question remained, was Sarah truly capable of harming a person? Initially, she was considered missing, but soon suspicion fell on her as the prime suspect. Investigators uncovered that she had packed her belongings, taken her dog, stolen Halal's car, and fled toward Texas. Along the way, however, her plans changed, and her journey took a different turn, hinting at a complex and troubled psyche shaped by years of manipulation and trauma. Traveling to Florida, she found the warmer climate appealing, and the prospect of enjoying the ocean views seemed inviting. After receiving this new information, authorities officially declared her a person of interest. Sarah was wanted not only for suspicion of causing Harold's death, but also for being mentally unstable and potentially dangerous. Her name circulated among law enforcement agencies nationwide for 11 days. On the 25th of January 2014, after more than a week and a half on the run, she was finally located and detained in Everglades National Park. The officers discovered her asleep in a stolen vehicle beside a loaded firearm. They also found $2,400 in cash, along with 2 additional guns, an axe, and several knives, one of which bore Harold's blood. Shortly after her arrest, Sarah was subjected to a 3-hour interrogation during which she admitted to killing Harold. Her account of events was as follows. On January 14th, Harold returned home after a long day at work. The household sound system had recently broken, so he spent the evening attempting repairs. He asked Sarah for a beer, then another and another. Exhausted, Harold suddenly collapsed on the floor, unaware that Sarah had secretly slipped a large dose of sleeping pills into one of his last bottles. Sarah had already decided Harold had to die. She bound him with zip ties, took a hunting knife, and within minutes slit his throat. Harold died peacefully in his sleep. Afterwards, Sarah took a shower while listening to her favorite music, washing away any evidence. She then called her workplace to report a family emergency and packed her belongings, including a photo of her sister, before fleeing in Harold's stolen car. To avoid detection, she left her cell phone and laptop at home. During the interrogation, Sarah openly discussed her motives. She explained that she had been confined at home, burdened by debt to a man who sought to control her. She became his target, endured abuse, and was eventually treated as his property. Her anger and desire for revenge overwhelmed her, regardless of the consequences. She also revealed a disturbing tendency toward violence, admitting to killing rabbits out of curiosity and noting that her violent thoughts had intensified over 2 years. Her confession placed her in a difficult position. She had not only admitted to Harold's murder, but also to experiencing violence herself. Given these horrific details, it was evident she would face trial. However, her mental health was clearly compromised, prompting authorities to prioritize a psychological evaluation. Alongside her recent violent tendencies, she claimed to have memory lapses and described herself as an observer within her own mind. Sarah was eventually diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, revealing that she was not simply Sarah, but also Vanessa, Alice, Neela, and the unnamed one. Alice represented the vulnerable, tearful side of her, while Vanessa embodied her fierce, militant inner strength. Neela was characterized by femininity and politeness, often seeking to please others. The most tragic of her personalities was the unnamed one, who bore the full weight of trauma and depression. During her trial, Sarah's defense centered on her dissociative identity disorder. She claimed that her alter, Alice, had wanted to end her life, but the other personalities had persuaded her to resist. After internal discussions, they concluded that the only escape from her suffering was to eliminate Harold. Her legal team argued that she was in a state of clinical dissociation at the time of the crime, emphasizing her history of abuse and trauma inflicted by Harold. However, the court found that her past suffering, though significant, was not directly relevant to her actions, which were deemed deliberate. The prosecution presented evidence that the crime was intentional, and her mental health diagnosis did not absolve her responsibility. Despite recognizing her mental disorder as genuine, the judges did not accept her defense, and she was convicted of Harold's murder. She received a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 50 years, a verdict that shocked both her and her family. It became clear that her punishment did not fully reflect the abuse she endured or her mental state at the time, leading her to file an appeal. She argued that her history of suffering should have been considered during sentencing. Unfortunately, new evidence emerged after her trial, revealing Harold's disturbing behavior. Investigators discovered that his computer was filled with illegal material, and an unidentified woman claimed that Harold had made inappropriate advances toward her daughters. This additional evidence led to a reduction of her sentence by half to 25 years. Sarah remains incarcerated to this day, as the court maintained that Harold's abuse, while undeniable, did not justify her premeditated act. The judges concluded that her crime was ultimately a conscious decision, despite her troubled past. In conclusion, Sarah was initially a victim, as Harold was a manipulative and cruel individual who deceived many in his community. Yet, some still remember him as a generous person who helped colleagues through financial struggles and offered advice when needed. Harold's family does not deny his shameful actions, but also acknowledges his positive qualities. Despite his faults, he clearly needed help, but he never sought it. Sarah's family believed she deserved punishment for her crimes, yet they also felt the sentence was excessively severe for someone attempting to escape her abuser. Harold, widely admired by many, was ultimately a deceptive figure, kind on the surface but dangerous beneath. This story illustrates how life circumstances, trauma, and inadequate support can lead to tragic outcomes. Sarah, having suffered abuse from someone she trusted, endured profound psychological harm. However, her deliberate act of taking another's life cannot be justified. The narrative underscores the importance of paying close attention to those around us and recognizing early warning signs, as timely intervention might have prevented the tragedy. It also prompts reflection on whether justice was truly served. Was Sarah's punishment appropriate, considering her mental state and the trauma she experienced? These questions remain open for debate. Ultimately, the story reminds us that appearances can be deceiving. Someone who seems kind may hide a darker nature. Harold, perceived as generous and caring by many, was in fact a manipulative predator. This tale urges us to be cautious in our judgments of others. Corey Desmond was born on March 18, 1980 in Torrance. From the outset, she was a fighter, battling for survival due to a congenital hole in her diaphragm that required multiple surgeries. Doctors gave her only a 20% chance of living, yet she not only survived but thrived. Her friends and family knew her as a bright, confident young woman unafraid to voice her opinions, full of energy and affection for those she loved. After graduating from North Torrance High School and earning a master's degree in criminal justice from Long Beach State, she initially hesitated about her career path but eventually decided to become a teacher, aiming to work with autistic children. A week after her passing, she received her teaching credential, an achievement celebrated by many. Corey was beloved by her friends and family. She could be sweet but also tough as nails. She had a talent for commanding attention, whether singing her favorite karaoke songs like Black Velvet or These Boots Were Made for Walking, or entertaining a crowd. Her secondary family, formed through her work at various venues, kept her motivated despite her family's wishes. On Saturday, February 14th, 2009, Corey finished her shift at a bar around 9:30 in the evening, then walked 2 blocks to the popular street lounge, where she was known by many staff members. Surveillance footage shows her assisting friends at the bar before leaving after closing around 2 a.m. On Monday, February 16th, no one among her friends saw her after a certain point. Around 2:20 in the afternoon, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office received a distressing call. A man about 100 meters from a local bar where Corey had last been seen reported a disturbing discovery. He had stopped to remove snow chains from his vehicle when he detected a strong, unpleasant odor. Initially, he thought it might be an animal hit by a car, but curiosity prompted him to investigate further. Near his vehicle, he noticed something unusual, a black plastic bag containing a woman's body. Frightened, he hurriedly ran into the street, flagged down passing cars, and asked for help, as his phone was dead. Authorities later identified the victim through fingerprints and her driver's license. She was a 28-year-old woman named Corey DEI Desmond. Her death had been violent. She was strangled, with numerous bruises on her face and neck and injuries to the back of her head. Despite her efforts to defend herself, which left her with several wounds, investigators could not determine the exact time of her passing. Medical experts estimated she had been on the street for roughly 12 to 36 hours before her body was discovered. Corey's pants were unbuttoned and pulled down to her knees, but there was no evidence of any intimate contact. Initial assumptions suggested that the place where her body was found was not the site of her death. It appeared the perpetrator had deliberately left her by the roadside, perhaps hoping it would take time for her body to be found. Rain had washed away most traces, complicating the investigation and making it more difficult to gather evidence. The news of Corey's death was devastating for her family. She had been living with her grandmother, and hearing about her granddaughter's body being found in a bag was a crushing blow. Her father, Mark, understood how slow and bureaucratic police procedures could be, often delaying investigations for months due to the need for warrants and formal procedures. Frustrated by the sluggish pace, Mark decided to take matters into his own hands. Driven by love and grief, he began searching for clues himself. He located Corey's Jeep Wrangler in an alley near the bar where she worked. It was confirmed that she had gone missing on the night of February 15th. Her grandmother, not overly alarmed at first, reasoned that Corey, being an adult, might have stayed overnight with friends or worked late, as she often did. Meanwhile, investigators visited the bar to gather information from employees and witnesses. They learned that Corey had finished her shift at around 9:30 in the evening. After her shift, she often visited a familiar local bar where her friends worked. Corey would usually help behind the counter or chat with friends while sitting nearby, earning extra tips from patrons who recognized her face. Surveillance footage confirmed her presence that evening, capturing her assisting her friends and interacting with visitors. As a bartender, her role extended beyond pouring drinks. It involved managing unpredictable situations that sometimes arose after alcohol consumption. That night, Corey encountered an unruly patron who behaved provocatively, bothering women and making inappropriate remarks. Witnesses saw her confront the man, clearly indicating he was not welcome. Although he was furious, he eventually agreed to leave. Corey resumed her duties, preparing drinks as if nothing had happened, and had consumed alcohol that evening without any noticeable change in her behavior. Around 2 o'clock in the morning, she left the bar alone, intending to go home. Tragically, her body was later discovered about 100 meters from the establishment. The following day, Mark provided authorities with all available information, urging anyone with relevant details to come forward. Investigators identified the man she argued with that night. During questioning, he claimed not to remember Corey Desmond, but acknowledged having a heated dispute with her at the bar on February 14th. He admitted that alcohol had made him uncontrollable that evening and confirmed he was ejected from the premises. Afterward, he went home to sleep. The suspect denied involvement in her death and agreed to a polygraph test, allowing police to search his house and vehicle. Forensic examination of his car, which was unclean both inside and out, revealed no traces linking him to the crime. Similarly, searches of his home yielded no evidence. The police's last hope was the polygraph, which he passed easily, answering all questions truthfully. His wife confirmed he returned home before 2 in the morning and went straight to bed, aligning with Corey's departure time. This evidence led authorities to exclude him from suspicion. However, with no other persons of interest identified, investigators delved into Corey's personal life, searching for potential enemies or motives. They uncovered an unusual detail. The bar owner recalled that Corey had approached him that night, requesting permission to use the restroom. Since the bar was closed, he refused and advised her to go home around 2 o'clock. On the morning of the 20th, the events that followed remained shrouded in mystery, as Corey never entered her vehicle nor returned home. Investigators suspected she had been abducted or assaulted near her workplace, yet surveillance footage from the bar failed to capture anything unusual, and there were no witnesses on the deserted street at that late hour. At the time of her death, her blood alcohol level was more than 4 times the legal limit for driving, leaving uncertainty about whether she intended to drive or sought alternative ways to reach home. Sadly, she did not encounter anyone who could have assisted her that night. A month later, the case reached an impasse. Authorities reviewed all leads and hypotheses, but uncovered no new suspects. Determined not to give up, Corey's father, Mark, took drastic measures. He rented 3 billboards along Artesia Boulevard in Redondo Beach, displaying a photo of his daughter alongside the question, "Who caused Corey's death?" He also offered a reward of $115,000 for any information that could aid the investigation. Mark explained his motivation. "I want these billboards to remind people that the person responsible is still out there. Maybe it will help save someone." His efforts echoed a similar story involving Alexander Kemp, where persistent billboard campaigns played a vital role in solving the case. Over time, information about Corey appeared intermittently on 50 electronic billboards, gradually leading to a breakthrough. In May of 2009, a woman named Tiffany called the police station after seeing one of the billboards featuring Corey's photo. Her call proved pivotal. Tiffany was visibly distressed and spoke hesitantly, as if overwhelmed by stress. After some initial rambling, she finally identified herself and said, "I believe my boyfriend, Tony Lopez Perez, was involved in that girl's death. Please check him." She explained that Tony had been acting strangely and promised to share more details in person. During their subsequent meeting in a park, Tiffany recounted her suspicions. She revealed that on February 14th, she and Tony had planned a romantic Valentine's Day dinner. She spent the evening preparing, took her children to their grandparents, visited a beauty salon, and bought a new red dress, something Tony loved, as he was fond of her wearing red. Tony was working that day, but had to return home around 11:30 in the evening. Tiffany waited for him almost all night, trying to reach him by phone, but he did not answer. Tony finally arrived home at 4 in the morning. One morning, Tony Lopez Perez casually claimed he was too intoxicated to return home, explaining he had fallen asleep in his car. Tiffany noted that Tony rarely cleaned his vehicle's interior, yet within days, he purchased a full set of cleaning supplies and meticulously washed the car, refusing her help. His odd behavior struck her as unusual, but she dismissed it at the time. A few days later, Tony sold his white Dodge for a surprisingly low price and replaced his phone number without any clear reason. Soon after, they embarked on a trip to Big Bear Lake, chatting normally during the drive. However, Tony suddenly pulled over and turned to Tiffany, asking if she thought the girl whose body was found near the bar, her name was Corey, was the same person he was almost certain the police had recovered from that location. Tiffany and Tony had lived together for about 4 years, sharing a 6-year-old son, though they were never married. Tony was known as a diligent worker, well-liked and law-abiding. Coming from a large family with 8 siblings, he grew up in the Los Angeles area and attended high school in Manhattan Beach. The day Corey's body was discovered, Tony was busy cleaning and urgently selling his car, then took an unusual trip and made a strange comment about where the police found her. His change of phone number and peculiar actions prompted Tiffany to suspect he might be involved in Corey's death. Although she struggled to accept this possibility, the accumulating facts pointed toward Tony as a potential suspect. Law enforcement decided to question Tony and visited his home, carefully avoiding alerting him to their suspicions. Tiffany agreed to cooperate, playing along with the police without revealing their intentions. During the interview, Tony appeared calm and cooperative, denying any connection to Corey and claiming he had only seen her in the newspapers. He insisted he didn't know her personally. However, to formally charge Tony with involvement in Corey's death, authorities needed concrete evidence. They tracked down the new owner of the Dodge, who confirmed that Tony had sold him the vehicle shortly after Corey's body was found. The police examined the car, and despite Tony's claims that he had cleaned it thoroughly, forensic tests using luminol and ultraviolet light revealed bright blue fluorescence inside the vehicle's interior. This indicated that Tony had attempted to clean away evidence, but residual traces remained. The police then summoned Tony to the station, keeping the discovery secret to prevent him from fleeing. Initially, he denied knowing Corey, but later changed his story, admitting he had seen her near the bar and had whistled at her. As the investigators observed his inconsistent statements, they presented him with photographs, further undermining his credibility. All these clues gradually built a case suggesting Tony Lopez Perez's involvement in Corey's death, based on suspicious behavior, forensic evidence, and his changing accounts. Tony had sold the car and claimed that investigators found vital evidence there. This time, he insisted he saw Corey outside a bar, standing under a street lamp. Suddenly, she lost consciousness and collapsed onto the sidewalk. He tried to help her, but she did not wake up. Panicking, Tony began slapping her face, which eventually caused her to open her eyes and scream. She demanded he leave and begged to be let go. Frightened, Tony said he covered her mouth with his hands and in a moment of fear accidentally strangled her. Believing he might be blamed for her death, he placed her body in the back of his car and drove home. Perez later recounted waking during the night and stepping outside, hoping it was just a nightmare. He confirmed to detectives that it was. He then returned inside and attempted to sleep. The next morning, he went to work with Corey's body still in the vehicle. After work, he placed her remains into 2 garbage bags, carried them to a secluded area, and left them beside the road. According to Tony, his actions were unintentional, driven by drunkenness and fear, and he claimed he had accidentally strangled her in a panic. However, Corey's injuries told a different story. She had severe trauma to the back of her head, bruises on her face and neck, and defensive wounds on her hands. Additionally, her pants were pulled down to her knees. Tony Perez was arrested and charged with first-degree deprivation of life. The following day, he led police to the spot where he discarded Corey's body. Alongside his confession, DNA evidence confirmed that Corey's blood matched the blood found in the car he had sold immediately after the incident. During the DVE Tiziaki Odenetsat trial, Coroner Jack Sheridan testified about multiple contusions on Corey's head, signs of strangulation, and blunt force injuries to her face. Sheridan also noted scratches on her body, indicating she had been dragged after her death. Prosecutors argued that Perez assaulted Corey and tried to force her into intimacy. On the early morning of February 15, 2009, Corey resisted, and Perez, unable to obtain what he wanted, strangled her. During the trial, Tiffany testified that her former boyfriend, Tony Lopez Perez, had an insatiable sexual appetite during January and February of that year. Despite nearly daily intimacy, she said Perez was still not satisfied. Tiffany also revealed that Tony had twice engaged in non-consensual acts with her, both times when she was asleep on the couch after taking painkillers for severe back pain. Perez, who chose not to testify, made a brief statement during sentencing, expressing that he had been taught to love and respect others, but admitted he had strayed from those lessons at times. Certainly, here's a deeply rephrased, concise, and polished version of the provided text, approximately 20% shorter, with clear, flowing narration suitable for narration or reading. My goal has always been to become a responsible man, a caring father, an affectionate uncle to many, and a supportive family member I deeply love. In the end, Perez admitted he fell short of that ideal. Throughout the trial, he maintained that he acted out of fear and never intended to harm Desmond. His attorney and Hennel argued that Perez found her unconscious on the sidewalk, tried to calm her, and claimed he did not mean to cause her harm. Perez reflected that he should have paused and thought more carefully, but fear overwhelmed him, leading to reckless actions. Corey's father, Mark Desmond, spoke of her bright future before her life was tragically cut short at the age of 28. He expressed that Tony Perez must live with the burden of having shattered her dreams and hopes, a pain that also affected his own family. Desmond's grandmother, Beverly, wished Perez would never be released and hoped he would suffer as much as her granddaughter had. In July of 2011, a jury of 6 men and 6 women found 36-year-old Tony Lopez Perez guilty of first-degree deprivation of life. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Corey Desmond's family appreciated the efforts of Tiffany Ware, whose vigilance helped authorities identify Perez. Leslie Schwab, a family friend who attended every day of the trial along with others, emphasized her gratitude. On June 8, 2018, while navigating waters near the Long Island Strait, a group of fishermen aboard a commercial vessel spotted a disturbing sight, an unresponsive man floating in the waves. As they approached, they recognized signs of distress on the body, which they promptly reported to the Coast Guard. Law enforcement quickly responded and recovered the body, later identified as Spencer McFord. His disappearance, along with his girlfriend Sophia McKenna, had caused widespread concern in the community just days earlier. The investigation into Spencer's death revealed a tragic end by drowning, confirmed through autopsy. Despite thorough examination, investigators found no evidence of foul play. All injuries were consistent with immersion in water. However, Spencer's death added to the ongoing mystery of a series of disappearances that had unsettled the region, deepening the community's concern about what lay behind these tragic events. Let me know if you'd like any further adjustments. On the weekend, 2 other men met similarly tragic fates, their bodies found submerged in waters initially considered mere accidents. These incidents raised unsettling questions, yet amid the uncertainty, one detail haunted everyone: the disappearance of Sophia McKenna, who vanished without a trace. Her fate became intertwined with Spencer's in a story riddled with unanswered questions, unfolding on the ominous night of May 27, 2018, in the small town of Groan, nestled in Connecticut's northeastern region. Known for its rich history and tales of spectral sightings, the town bore witness to a tragedy that seemed beyond ordinary understanding. Local legend spoke of Ernie, the lighthouse's first keeper, whose unrequited love allegedly drove him to a fatal plunge from its heights. It was to this revered site that Spencer and Sophia had gone, their destinies linked to the mysteries surrounding the ancient structure. Rumors of strange phenomena at the lighthouse had circulated for years, with residents and visitors alike recounting odd occurrences: doors and windows mysteriously opening, bed sheets slipping off without explanation, radios turning on by themselves, and ships inexplicably drifting away from the shore. Such stories had propelled the lighthouse into the realm of paranormal fascination, often featured in television programs dedicated to unexplained phenomena. Despite the speculative nature of these reports, the lighthouse's mysterious aura continued to attract curious visitors. Spencer and Sophia, drawn by a shared desire to explore its secrets, set out on the night before Memorial Day. Their adventure took a troubling turn on that Saturday evening. When Sophia's friend Austin tried to contact her later that night, he received no response. Initially, he thought she was simply asleep, but as hours passed without word, concern grew. Michelle, Sophia's mother, was contacted and found a series of missed calls from an unfamiliar number on her phone. When she tried to return the call, she reached Spencer's voicemail, deepening the worry. As anxiety mounted, Michelle and Austin searched the area for any sign of the missing pair. Austin contacted local hospitals, while Michelle promptly filed a missing persons report. Meanwhile, Spencer's family expressed their concern, noting his absence from a family gathering and his failure to respond to messages. Their search led them to Spencer's apartment, but it yielded no clues. Spencer's mother remembered their last conversation around 10 p.m., when he had mentioned plans to meet Sophia. As the pieces of the puzzle slowly fell into place, the mystery surrounding their disappearance grew darker, leaving both families desperate for answers. When Spencer finally responded with a good night, it became clear that something had gone wrong, prompting his family to alert authorities around 6:30 in the morning. Following the sudden disappearance of a young couple, law enforcement swiftly launched a comprehensive search. Austin, a friend of the missing duo, contacted the sheriff to share vital details about Sophia and Spencer's last known whereabouts. He confirmed that Sophia had visited him the night before and provided additional context. Austin revealed that he had seen a Snapchat video posted by Sophia showing them aboard a boat heading toward the lighthouse. The footage captured a lively scene, with Spencer rowing and Sophia playfully posing near the lighthouse's concrete barrier, which bore a "Do Not Cross" sign. What happened after this snapshot remained unclear. Just minutes later, at 2 o'clock in the morning, Spencer's phone made a series of calls to Michelle, Sophia's mother. These calls were made at 2:06, 2:08, and ended at 2:09. Michelle, deep in sleep, missed all the calls, leaving no voicemails or messages, and there was no record of her contacting emergency services. Visual evidence confirmed the couple's presence at the lighthouse, prompting authorities to deploy Coast Guard units. A coordinated effort involving the Coast Guard, firefighters, and police searched the area from air, sea, and land. The first major discovery was Sophia's abandoned car on the university campus, along with her cell phone. Meanwhile, the Coast Guard recovered Spencer's t-shirt, seen in the video, which likely had been used to secure the boat. The search continued tirelessly through the night and into the next day, despite worsening weather conditions. Eventually, authorities made the difficult decision to pause the search until new leads or signs emerged. This announcement shocked their families and friends, who refused to lose hope. They took matters into their own hands, posting flyers and spreading the word about the missing couple. However, despite their efforts, no witnesses came forward, and the streets were silent during the disappearance. Questions lingered without answers. Why did Sophia repeatedly call her mother but avoid leaving a voicemail or contacting authorities? Could their disappearance be linked to recent legal issues, such as stealing a boat and visiting the forbidden lighthouse? Sophia's prior legal troubles and Spencer's DUI arrest might have contributed to her hesitation to seek help again, prompting her to reach out only to her mother. The state of her mind at that moment remains uncertain, clouded by panic and confusion. Meanwhile, investigators worked tirelessly to reconstruct the events of May 26, 2018, a day that started like any other, filled with sunshine and anticipation for Memorial Day celebrations. Yet for Sophia and Spencer, the day took a dark and mysterious turn. Following their departure, the details of their whereabouts quickly faded into a fog of uncertainty. It remains unclear where they went or whom they encountered, with only limited clues available. The only known fact is that Sophia's car was discovered parked at the University of Connecticut campus around 2 o'clock in the morning. Whether she left her phone behind due to forgetfulness or because it was out of power remains unknown. The couple then set out on an ill-fated voyage aboard a small sailboat weighing merely 14 pounds and equipped solely with oars. Confident in his maritime skills, Spencer led the way as they pushed off from the shore, navigating dangerously close to rocky outcroppings en route to the notorious lighthouse. Their reckless attitude, combined with the lack of proper safety gear, underscored the perilous nature of their journey. On Monday evening, a breakthrough emerged when a police helicopter patrolling the coastline spotted a white and blue sailboat caught among the rocks, coated in dust. This vessel was located about 12 kilometers west of the lighthouse. Authorities suspected it to be the missing boat from the campus, possibly used by Spencer and Sophia. However, definitive proof remained elusive. Fingerprints found on the boat provided promising leads, yet their analysis and results were not made public, leaving the investigation shrouded in mystery. Conflicting reports initially described the vessel as a kayak, only later clarifying it as a white sailboat marked with red accents. In their pursuit of answers, investigators examined the backgrounds of Sophia McKenna and Spencer Mugford. Sophia, born in March of 1996 in North Sturt, Connecticut, was 21 at the time. She lived in Groton, Connecticut, with her siblings Justin and Grace. Known for her caring nature and close family ties, Sophia's childhood was marked by her parents' divorce, which she endured with resilience. Despite her lively spirit, her past shadows her life. She struggled with bipolar disorder throughout high school, experiencing intense mood swings between euphoria and depression. These episodes often clouded her judgment and strained her relationships, despite her efforts to manage the condition through medication and therapy. The disorder posed ongoing challenges, disrupting her daily routine and emotional stability. In 2015, Sophia met Austin, a charismatic individual whose charm captivated her immediately. Their relationship, lasting 3 years, was tumultuous, influenced by Austin's volatile temperament and his use of anabolic steroids. This volatile dynamic added further complexity to her life, shaping her experiences and emotional landscape. Sophia's life was marred by frequent heated disputes and occasional physical confrontations, often triggered by her struggles with mental health. Despite discovering Austin's infidelity and ending their relationship, she continued to interact with him sporadically, navigating the emotional turbulence that followed. Amid these challenges, Sophia briefly explored modeling for a local firm, which provided her with a much-needed financial boost to support her education. Eventually, she graduated as a massage therapist and secured a position at the Red Door, an upscale spa located within a luxurious hotel. It was at this spa that she met Spencer Mugford, a 20-year-old colleague from Florida who shared her love of the sea and held a bright future ahead. Despite their mutual interests and undeniable connection, both faced opposition from their families, who disapproved of their relationship amid the ongoing turmoil. Sophia's mother, Michelle, expressed deep concern over her daughter's well-being, especially given her frequent meetings with Austin and their nearly daily alcohol consumption. Although Sophia and Spencer decided to remain friends after their romantic relationship ended, the exact reasons for their continued closeness remain unclear. Some speculate that Sophia may have rekindled her connection with Austin, but both Sophia and Spencer continued spending significant time together, both at work and outside. Their last day together was marked by tragedy when Spencer's body was discovered after days of searching by his family. An obituary appeared in local media, and Sophia's family issued a similar notice, holding on to hope despite the ongoing uncertainty. Investigators struggled to piece together the events leading to Spencer's disappearance, as no new information emerged. Spencer's phone was never recovered, and authorities did not release cell operator records. Surveillance footage from the lighthouse and campus was unavailable, as cameras were reportedly out of order, and the lighthouse itself was not checked after their disappearance in July of 2018. In an effort to keep the case in public awareness, Sophia's close relatives created a Facebook page titled Searching for Sophia McKenna, which became a platform for sharing information, distributing flyers, and appealing for any tips. Several weeks after her disappearance, Michelle received a suspicious money request from Sophia's social media account. Since police had recovered Sophia's phone, this message raised concerns about possible hacking. Official investigations into Spencer's death and Sophia's disappearance reached a standstill, with no definitive conclusions. Unofficially, various theories circulated, one implicating Austin, Sophia's former partner, suggesting he might have been involved in her disappearance and Spencer's death. Some speculated that Austin, possibly with accomplices, might have assaulted Sophia and disposed of Spencer's body, though these claims remained unproven amid the ongoing mystery. In the months leading up to her disappearance, Michelle Sophia's mother witnessed numerous conflicts and physical confrontations involving her daughter. Tensions escalated significantly on May 8th, 2018, when Sophia discovered her partner Austin's infidelity, prompting her to end their relationship. In what might have been an act of revenge or a desire for a fresh start, Sophia began seeing someone new and invited him to her home. Austin, furious, rushed to her residence, where neighbors later observed him loudly banging and kicking the door, shouting insults at Sophia. After about a quarter of an hour of silence, assuming he had left, Sophia cautiously opened the door, only to find him still there, attempting to force his way inside. Fortunately, she managed to close the door swiftly. Witnesses heard him threaten to harm her if she did not comply. By that time, law enforcement and Michelle had arrived, and Austin was taken into custody. The next day, a restraining order was issued, preventing Austin from approaching Sophia. During her testimony, Sophia recounted previous assaults by Austin and showed photographic evidence of her injuries. She expressed fears for her safety due to his stalking behavior. Initially, the order barred him from being near her, but later, Sophia felt remorse and requested a revision, restricting only his access to her residence. The person accompanying Sophia at that moment refused to identify himself and initially hesitated to cooperate with authorities. Although Michelle initially claimed the companion was Spencer, she later withdrew her statement. A trusted colleague of Sophia later revealed the true identity of her partner, confirming that Sophia and Spencer were romantically involved and behaved as a couple both professionally and socially. Witnesses also recalled an incident at a hotel where Austin, her former partner, publicly threatened her. Despite these events, Austin and his father participated in the search for Sophia, using a private helicopter and distributing flyers with her image across the city. Austin publicly declared on social media that Sophia was his girlfriend of 3 years and insisted her relationship with Spencer was purely platonic. This focus on their relationship rather than her disappearance seemed unusual to many. On July 10th, a memorial service was held by her loved ones, and Austin attended with Michelle. Later, he posted a message online saying, "Rest in peace, baby. We will meet again soon," though the post has since been removed. According to Austin's account to authorities, he had spent all of May 26th with Sophia, even defying a court order to meet her, and they had plans for the following day. A friend of Austin's reported that around 3 o'clock in the morning he was with Sophia, further complicating the timeline of events. On the night of the incident, Austin claimed via message to Sophia that he was at the gym with a friend, though the timing raised doubts since gyms are usually closed at that hour. His family insists he was at home before supposedly heading to the gym, while an anonymous witness mentioned Austin and his brother being invited to a party that day. Although Austin initially planned to attend, he later cited fatigue and canceled, creating inconsistencies about his whereabouts during Sophia and Spencer's disappearance. These discrepancies fueled lingering questions, especially given reports suggesting Austin's volatile temperament, possibly linked to steroid use. Some acquaintances expressed concern about his behavior, and rumors circulated about connections between Austin, his brother, and local police, including allegations that a family member was married to the police chief overseeing Sophia's case with accusations of misconduct. However, the credibility of these claims, especially those from a friend with a criminal record, remains uncertain. After a video about Sophia appeared on a YouTube channel dedicated to Long Island disappearances, Austin quickly deleted all photos of her from his social media, a move that puzzled many, particularly since Sophia's case remained unresolved. One theory suggests Austin might have tried to distance himself by showcasing a new romantic interest, though the complete removal of Sophia-related content seemed unusual. His reduced involvement in the ongoing search in the days following her disappearance also drew attention. During interviews, Austin appeared calm and showed no obvious distress over her absence, but such reactions can vary widely among individuals. Some speculate that Sophia's disappearance was intentional, to prevent her from testifying in a domestic violence case involving Austin, which was eventually dismissed, While this scenario is plausible, Austin has not been formally linked to any wrongdoing and the investigation remains open. Another possibility is that Sophia and Spencer encountered dangerous individuals at the lighthouse. Witnesses either did not remember seeing them or considered their presence insignificant, resulting in no official reports. Sophia's mother suggested she might have been abducted or trafficked, but there is no evidence or ransom demand to support these ideas. Law enforcement also considers the chance that an accident occurred, perhaps due to reckless decisions. The young couple had embarked on an ill-prepared boat trip, leaving life jackets behind as they navigated turbulent waters. After reaching the lighthouse, they secured the boat with Spencer's t-shirt, recorded their visit, and then realized the boat had drifted away, raising concerns about what might have happened next. Spencer's swimming skills and judgment may have played a crucial role in his disappearance. His underestimation of the water's chill could have been a key factor, as the darkness often distorts distance perception, possibly leading him to believe the boat was closer than it actually was. Exhausted from a long day's work and the effort of swimming toward the lighthouse, Spencer found himself in a perilous situation where drowning was a real threat. When he vanished, Sophia attempted to reach her mother for help. In her desperation, she might have impulsively jumped into the water to rescue him, risking her own safety. Despite her lack of swimming experience, alcohol's influence could have clouded her judgment, prompting an irrational act. Alternatively, she might have been walking along the lighthouse's narrow ledge, searching for Spencer, only to slip and fall, dropping her phone into the water and being carried away by the current. While these scenarios circulate widely on social media, none have been officially confirmed. Sophia's loved ones continue their search, driven by hope and the need for answers. In 2019, an independent investigator discovered bones near the shoreline, which prompted authorities to investigate. Unfortunately, the remains were dismissed as animal bones, and forensic analysis was not conducted due to budget limitations. Many aspects of the case remain suspicious, demanding a comprehensive investigation. The unresolved disappearance of Sophia, a cherished family member, leaves her loved ones in ongoing grief. Despite other missing persons being found in these waters, her remains have yet to surface, and no new leads have emerged, leaving the mystery of that tragic night at the lighthouse unsolved. Before meeting Joanne, Paul had a history of tumultuous relationships. In 1993, during his university years, he briefly dated Carrie Thompson, who later described his violent tendencies. She recounted how he would become aggressive during arguments, smashing walls and forcibly restraining her. This was only the beginning of his pattern of violence. In 1999, Jenny Mary Clark entered his life, and within 2 weeks they married. However, their wedding night was marred by violence as Paul attacked Jenny, and such incidents continued, with him physically assaulting her and even strangling her into unconsciousness. Investigators believe this abusive behavior persisted with Joanne as well. Despite this, Paul and Jenny decided to have a child, and their daughter Chloe was born in 2000. They divorced shortly afterwards. When Chloe was 5, Jenny met Joanne, recognizing that Joanne was too naive to handle Paul's brutality. Joanne's sister later suggested she might not have known about Paul's criminal past, which could have influenced her decision to pursue a relationship and have children with him. Their story began on the streets where Paul worked as a security guard, but his violent history cast a long shadow over their lives. In a small town on the east coast of Yorkshire, Joanne Nelson was known for her cheerful spirit and bright personality. At just 19, she was beginning her journey into adulthood, while her partner Paul, age 27, was already experienced in relationships and worked as a security guard in local venues. Despite their age gap, they found solace in each other, escaping parental control and seeking independence. Initially, they lived with Paul's mother, but soon they managed to buy their own home. Yet, as time passed, their happiness waned, fading like smoke from a dying fire. The days grew dull and gray, and tension crept into their relationship. Joanne cherished order and stability, while Paul was more relaxed and unconcerned with routine. On February 14, 2005, Joanne failed to arrive at her job, a rare occurrence that immediately raised alarm. As investigations unfolded, the peaceful town was shaken by a wave of unsettling revelations. Joanne, a lively and caring young woman, had always prioritized her loved ones' happiness. Growing up in Hull, also known as Kingston upon Hull, she was the daughter of Jean, a teaching assistant, and Charlie, a city council engineer. Joanne excelled academically and socially, thriving in sports like netball, lacrosse, and swimming. She dreamed of creating her own family, but initially attempted a career in medicine. The emotional strain of nursing proved too taxing, and she later chose to work at an employment center in Hull, where she found fulfillment in helping others find work and develop their skills. Her kindness and dedication left a lasting impression on everyone she met. Her sudden disappearance on Valentine's Day transformed what should have been a celebration of love into a scene of shock and mystery. Her parents were devastated, and when her boyfriend reported her missing, a sense of dread filled the air. Paul claimed that the last time he saw Joanne was when she was asleep, and upon returning from work, she had vanished without a trace. It was as if she had disappeared into thin air, leaving only shadows of fear and hope behind. At just 22, Joanne's sudden absence caused profound distress among her family and friends. The situation grew even more perplexing when she failed to contact anyone, deepening the mystery surrounding her disappearance. In the wake of significant events such as her best friend's father's funeral and her sister Katie's 19th birthday, authorities quickly initiated an extensive search operation. This effort involved numerous law enforcement officers, military personnel, and volunteers dedicated to finding her. Joanne's father openly voiced his suspicions about Paul, questioning how he could be connected to the disappearance of such a responsible young woman. Despite her father's concerns, Katie, aware of the situation, found it difficult to believe that Paul was involved in Joanne's vanishing. The family's anxiety grew as weeks passed without any sign of her. Paul threw himself into the search, working alongside volunteers, worried relatives, and friends. Without explicit family approval, he gave multiple interviews to the media, eager to help find her. When questioned by a reporter over the phone, Paul strongly denied any involvement, insisting he loved Joanne and could never harm her. However, inconsistencies appeared in his behavior. During a televised interview, expert Cliff Lansley analyzed Paul's demeanor, noting oddities such as his failure to close his eyes while talking about Joanne, an unusual sign for someone grieving. Additionally, Paul showed no tears, which raised further suspicion. Further investigation by Ray Higgins, head of the police team at Humberside, revealed nail marks on Paul's hand, prompting authorities to consider his possible connection to Joanne's disappearance or worse. Eventually, Paul's mother, overwhelmed by emotional strain, disclosed critical information about her son's actions, providing potential clues about Joanne's fate. Confronted with this evidence, Paul did not deny his involvement. Just 6 days after Joanne's disappearance, he was taken into custody. During a tense interrogation, the truth surfaced on Valentine's Day in 2005. Paul admitted to ending Joanne's life in their home. He recounted a heated argument that spiraled out of control. According to him, Joanne's constant criticism, especially about household chores, had been the catalyst. He claimed that her request for help with the washing machine triggered his anger and shame at feeling inadequate. Matters worsened when Joanne announced her intention to leave him and demanded that they sell their home for £10,000, which further inflamed his rage. In a moment of fury, Paul confessed to strangling Joanne with his bare hands. Afterward, he maintained a chilling composure, carefully planning to cover up his crime. He devised a scheme to make her disappearance appear sudden and unplanned, engaging in casual conversations with neighbors and discussing mundane topics, all while secretly orchestrating his deception. While concealing his darker nature, he appeared unnervingly composed during the entire process. Surveillance footage captured his calm demeanor as he purchased supplies, demonstrating a disturbingly controlled facade. Armed with garbage bags, rubber gloves, and disinfectant spray, he carried out his plan with cold precision. He methodically restrained Joanne's limbs, encased her in bags, and sealed them with duct tape, then transported her body to her vehicle without hesitation. His audacity was matched only by the scale of his crime, as he committed this heinous act in broad daylight, revealing his cunning and manipulative nature. With chilling composure, he concealed his actions from onlookers, showcasing his ability to deceive those around him effortlessly. After hiding Joanne's body in her own car, he embarked on a calculated journey, driving approximately 75 miles to a remote woodland near Winteringham in North Yorkshire. There, he carefully planned each step, carrying her remains through dense forest to find a secluded spot among tall pines. Using twigs, he obscured what he saw as his final act of love, burying her in a makeshift grave. Returning to her vehicle, he maintained his facade of normalcy, showing no remorse or acknowledgement of his actions. He even fabricated a fake phone call with Joanne to divert suspicion, further demonstrating his cold-blooded demeanor. Despite his efforts to deceive, his actions betrayed a high level of planning and premeditation. During the subsequent investigation, his memory conveniently faltered regarding the exact location of the burial site. Led by Detective Ray Higgins, a dedicated team spent 6 weeks searching across 3 counties. Finally, on the 24th of March, after 39 days of relentless effort, the grim truth was uncovered. In a solemn operation led by Detective Phil Gadd, Joanne's remains were found in Bransby near York. The search party followed Paul's descriptions until they discovered the telltale signs, a garbage bag hidden beneath branches containing her body wrapped in plastic. This tragic discovery confirmed the worst fears of her family. The 24th of March marked the end of a harrowing ordeal, bringing closure to those who mourned her loss. It also revealed a disturbing history of violence and manipulation that Paul had kept hidden from his family and the public. During his time working as a security guard at a club, he ominously referred to himself as a psychopath, sending shivers through those who knew him. Witnesses from the gym recounted instances where he provoked fights, painting a disturbing picture of his character. As the trial progressed, more unsettling details emerged, exposing a pattern of disturbing behavior and a history of violence. Paul's story is a complex tapestry woven with contrasting threads of normalcy and darkness. Once a seemingly ordinary student, he attended Sydney Smith School before enrolling at Howe College, where he earned a qualification in constructional engineering. Despite his academic success, his life took a sinister turn when he later pursued horticulture at Bishop Burton College, completing the program at just 17. These revelations painted a disturbing picture of a man whose outward appearance masked deep-seated struggles. His transformation from an average young man into someone capable of unthinkable violence left Joanne's family and the community in shock, forcing them to confront the unsettling reality of the darkness that resided within him. Paul's journey through life spanned from Saudi Arabia to Sutton Road, where he worked diligently across various industries alongside his father, Peter Dyson. Together, they navigated the maintenance sector, honed gardening skills, and explored machining, illustrating a young man eager to forge his own path. Yet beneath this veneer of normality lay troubling truths. At 15, Paul's life took a dark turn when he connected with Colin Allen, a martial arts expert, with whom he formed an unlikely bond. It was to Colin that Paul confessed to a serious crime, a revelation that ultimately led to his arrest. His acquaintances described him as charming and attractive to women, but also as someone who exploited his role as a security guard to establish connections with women from higher social circles, revealing a distorted self-image. Colleagues and relatives painted a contrasting picture. Some saw him as outspoken and boastful about his athletic achievements, while others recalled disturbing statements. Shockingly, his family recounted that Paul often bragged about his father's involvement in the deaths of 2 individuals. This claim was rooted in reality. His father, Peter Dyson, had served prison time for manslaughter in a case involving a man named John Dickinson, who had been unfaithful to his wife. The tragic events of 1967 cast a long shadow over Paul's upbringing, exposing him early to the harsh realities of life and death. Throughout his tumultuous journey, a haunting portrait emerged, one that intertwined family history, personal choices, and the darker aspects of human nature. Paul's life was marked by tragedy from the very beginning. He was born just 2 days after a tragic event in 1974, a tragedy whose haunting consequences would linger throughout his story. Peter Dyson's father found himself involved in a tragic incident when he was behind the wheel, colliding with 47-year-old Gordon Kell, who was returning home after celebrating a milestone anniversary. In a shocking turn, Peter fled the scene, leaving Gordon to perish by the roadside. Despite the seriousness of the event, Peter's son Paul held his father in high regard, viewing him as a hero. The untimely death of Peter in 2000 due to a heart attack while living in Saudi Arabia left a lasting impact on Paul's mind, casting a shadow over his life and influencing his future in profound ways. When the trial began on the 7th of November 2005, the courtroom was silent as a startling revelation emerged. In a dramatic move, Paul unexpectedly pleaded guilty, surprising everyone present. Joanne's family, bracing for a lengthy legal process, was thrown into disbelief and uncertainty. Their whispers filled the room as Paul's admission echoed through the chamber. Throughout the proceedings, he remained composed, his eyes either fixed straight ahead or cast downward, deliberately avoiding the intense gazes of Joanne's loved ones and the scrutiny of officials. His face showed no emotion, not even when the formal charges were read aloud. His lawyer, Harry Barrell, acknowledged the seriousness of the case, emphasizing that there was no justification for the act committed by his client. After Paul's shocking confession, a solemn atmosphere settled over the courtroom, marking the start of a difficult journey toward justice and resolution. Nearly 10 months later, on the 8th of November 2005, Paul was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 16 years. Remarkably, in November of the year 2019, at the age of 45, he was transferred to an open prison and approved for day release. The parole board cited his active participation in self-awareness programs and his successful completion of an intensive relationship improvement course as reasons for this decision. Recalling the day Joanne disappeared, Katie was struck by Paul's behavior. She later admitted feeling regret for offering him comfort when he appeared at her doorstep. When Paul later wandered off, Katie, worried, searched for him and found him at a bus stop. She held his hands to support him and, overwhelmed by emotion, embraced him, hoping to provide some solace. Reflecting on that moment, Katie confessed she hadn't initially noticed the scratches on his arm, but later felt guilty for missing them. The easing of Paul's detention conditions and the possibility of day release stirred deep emotional turmoil within Joanne's family. Katie, speaking publicly, shared their feelings of uncertainty and concern about his future. The overwhelming feelings of grief and bewilderment that accompanied this news were compounded by memories of Joanne's sudden passing, leaving the family to grapple with a profound sense of injustice. Despite their conviction that Paul did not merit such leniency for his grave actions on October 1st, 1993, they struggled to accept the circumstances. On that evening, a 12-year-old girl named Polly CLA Petaluma invited two friends over for a sleepover. The night had started smoothly, but everything changed when Polly's mother, Eva, was abruptly awakened by piercing screams. She soon discovered that her daughter had been taken by an unknown intruder. Polly Claus was born on January 3, 1981, in Fairfax, California, into a family consisting of her father, Mark, her mother, Eva, and her younger sister, Annie. Early in life, her parents' separation led Polly and her sister to live with their mother in Petaluma. Later, Mark entered a new relationship, and Polly developed a close bond with her stepmother, creating a balanced family environment. Polly was known as a quiet, innocent child who, despite her shyness, found confidence through her involvement in theater. She actively participated in school plays and community musicals, often cast in leading roles, with her dream being a successful career in musical theater. Polly also cherished social gatherings like sleepovers, which were common within her circle of friends. On October 1st, she asked her mother if her friends Jillian and Kate could spend the night. Eva agreed, and the girls arrived that afternoon, spending the evening happily. Around 9:45 p.m., Eva, feeling unwell due to a severe headache, decided to go to bed, informing the girls she might be asleep and asking them to wake her if needed. She took 2 sleeping pills and soon fell into a deep sleep. Later, shortly after 11 p.m., Eva was awakened by the screams of her friends. The girls explained that a man had broken into the house and taken Polly. Immediately, Ava contacted the authorities and checked on her other daughter, Annie, who seemed unaware of the disturbance. When police arrived, they began questioning the two friends. The girls recounted that they had been in a room, engaged in activities like choosing Halloween costumes and playing together around the time of the incident. In the evening, Polly suggested it was time to sleep, and her friends agreed. She mentioned she had prepared an inflatable bed with her mother so they could all rest together. When they opened the bedroom door, they were startled to see a man holding a knife. Due to the proximity of Halloween, the girls initially thought it was a prank and laughed. However, once they realized it was serious, fear took hold. The man, growing angry at their reactions, forced them into another room and restrained their hands and feet. When asked who lived in the house, they all identified Polly as the resident. The intruder then removed pillowcases from nearby pillows, placed them over Jillian and Kate's heads, and told them to count to 1,000. He assured them he was only taking Polly for a short while and promised to return her soon. After the man left, Jillian and Kate struggled to free themselves, an effort that took about half an hour. Once free, they hurried to tell Eva about Polly's kidnapping. They relayed the entire incident to the police, providing a detailed description of the suspect. Since he had not concealed his face, authorities were able to create a sketch which aided their investigation. Evidence from Polly's home was limited. Footprints belonged to Polly, her family, and recent visitors, but fibers found on the carpet differed significantly from those in Polly's residence. These fibers were later identified as coming from automotive carpeting material. Police examined vehicles linked to recent visitors but found no matches, leading them to suspect the fibers originated from the kidnapper's vehicle. A palm print was also discovered, but technological limitations at the time prevented thorough analysis. This evidence was preserved for future comparison. Additionally, investigators found a piece of fabric resembling silk cut with scissors from a garment featuring distinctive patterns. They believed this could assist future inquiries. A hair from an unknown individual was also recovered, though DNA analysis techniques then were not advanced enough for conclusive results. The search for Polly became one of the largest in U.S. history at that time, involving around 4,000 volunteers who scoured neighborhoods, vacant lots, and large estates near her home. Police efforts to locate a driver matching the suspect's sketch proved unsuccessful, but the investigation continued with hope of finding Polly and bringing her abductor to justice. Within 24 hours of Polly's disappearance, authorities recognized the urgency of locating her alive, as the chances of her being found safe diminished rapidly afterwards. The FBI was brought in to assist, deploying their resources to accelerate the search. Despite their relentless efforts, days passed, and hope of discovering Polly still alive began to fade. Local police questioned neighbors about any unusual activity on the night she was taken. Several residents reported seeing a strange man wandering nearby, but they did not suspect he might be involved in an abduction, so they did not notify emergency services. When investigators shared a sketch based on descriptions from Polly's friends, all neighbors confirmed having seen the individual, yet no one recognized him or provided further clues. Police also interviewed teachers and staff at Polly's school, seeking any knowledge about the man or any relevant information. Unfortunately, no one had any insight, and everyone had an alibi for the time of the incident. The authorities even examined fibers found in Polly's home, comparing them with car mats from staff members' vehicles, but no matches emerged. As weeks turned into months, the mounting concern among Polly's family, law enforcement, and the public intensified. There was growing apprehension that the kidnapper posed a serious threat to society, increasing pressure on investigators to resolve the case swiftly. A reward of $200,000 was announced for information leading to Polly's safe return, sponsored by actress Winona Ryder, who held a press conference emphasizing the importance of her safe recovery. In Atna Tisiacha Deviatsot Devianosto Tree, the case took an unusual turn. Since internet use was not yet widespread or integrated into law enforcement efforts, 3 residents from California decided to harness this emerging technology to aid the search. They posted pictures of Polly, sketches of her kidnapper, and details of the reward online. Their outreach reached an estimated 25 million people across the United States through various forums and communication channels. While law enforcement hoped this would generate crucial leads, it ultimately did not produce significant breakthroughs. Despite the increased publicity and numerous tips, investigators remained unable to identify the kidnapper or find a DNA match from evidence collected. The sense of helplessness persisted until an unexpected phone call offered a glimmer of hope, which quickly faded into uncertainty. Mark Class received a call from someone claiming to be his daughter, Polly, stating she was at a hotel and that her captor had just stepped out, giving her a brief chance to reach out. Unfortunately, the call was cut off before any further details could be obtained. Mark immediately reported the call to the police, but the case remained unresolved. In the absence of sophisticated tools to trace previous calls, authorities often relied on waiting for new ones, hoping to gather more information. On one occasion, after several hours, a second call was received from the same young woman who had initially spoken with Mark. When the police traced this call, they were surprised to find it did not originate from a hotel, but rather from a residential neighborhood. Upon arriving at the identified address, officers discovered it was a prank. A teenage girl of similar age to the victim, likely due to her voice resemblance, had made the call. She explained that her friends had dared her to do it. Instead of taking her to a police station, the authorities asked her parents to supervise her activities and warned her against making light of serious situations. Nearly 2 months after Polly's disappearance, on November 28, 1993, a woman contacted the police to report 3 suspicious objects on her large property. Law enforcement and FBI agents responded and uncovered key items connected to the case, including a piece of silk matching one found in Polly's room, which had been missing since that night, as Eva had mentioned, along with ballet ties and tape. This evidence led investigators to believe that Polly might still be nearby. Further inquiries revealed that on the day she vanished, the same woman had reported frequent trespassing on her extensive wooded land, which contained only a small house and no fencing. The absence of barriers or signs meant many unwittingly entered her property, unaware it was private. One incident stood out. On the night Polly was abducted, a man approached her house in his vehicle, which became stuck in the mud. The nanny caring for the woman's child saw the man first, but hesitated to confront him out of fear. The homeowner also chose not to approach, noting an angry expression in his eyes. Instead, they contacted the police. When officers arrived, they questioned the man about his presence. He claimed he was unaware the land was private and expressed a desire to leave quickly, asking for help to free his vehicle. The officers observed that he seemed very nervous and frightened, sweating and possibly under the influence of substances. Lacking the means to test him at that moment and seeing no overt aggression, they assisted him in freeing his car, after which he drove away. This individual was Richard Allen Davis, born in 1954 in San Francisco, California. His childhood was marked by violence inflicted by his parents. When Richard was 12, his parents separated, and his mother disowned him, leaving him with his father. His father was often irresponsible, frequently leaving Richard alone for long periods, sometimes with neighbors or relatives. As a teenager, Richard's situation worsened, and he began to engage in increasingly troubling behavior. Richard's early life was marked by a pattern of petty thefts and frequent street fights, which eventually led him into reform school at the age of 17. A pivotal moment occurred when he committed a violent robbery that nearly injured his victim severely. Faced with a stark choice from the court, either attend reform school or enlist in the U.S. Army, Richard chose military service. However, his stint lasted less than 2 years before he was dishonorably discharged due to ongoing misconduct and unruly behavior. As he grew older, Richard's troubles persisted, and his criminal record expanded considerably. By the age of 20, he was sentenced to 15 years for robbery and kidnapping, yet he served only 1 year before being released on parole for good conduct. During this turbulent period, rumors circulated that he might have been involved in the disappearance of a young woman named Marlene. Although police investigations concluded she had left voluntarily, her close friends believed Richard was connected, especially after they had attended a party together. These suspicions remained unproven and were largely based on hearsay. When Marlene vanished, Richard was on probation and lacked a fixed address. Law enforcement issued a special bulletin urging officers to exercise extreme caution and kept details from the media to prevent him from fleeing the state or country. Ultimately, on November 13th, 1993, Richard was stopped while driving under the influence during a routine traffic check. The officer, recognizing him from the case, quickly realized the connection and arrested him for violating his probation. Richard cooperated without resistance, and at the police station, officers read him his rights. During questioning, he was informed that he was being detained for the kidnapping of Polly. Under intense interrogation, Richard eventually confessed to abducting Polly. The police gathered evidence linking him to the crime. His palm print matched one found at Polly's residence, and fibers from her house were identical to those in his car's carpeting. Witnesses who knew Polly identified Richard as her abductor, and a piece of silk identical to one found in her room was discovered both in his vehicle and on property connected to a woman who had contacted authorities. Confronted with this overwhelming evidence, Richard decided to admit his involvement. He explained that he had been using illegal substances that day and was feeling unwell, which led him to make the decision to break his silence. In a certain neighborhood, Richard entered a house intending to commit a theft. Before arriving in Polly's area, he had driven around for some time and noticed an open window in a residence, which prompted him to climb inside. He claimed he had no premeditated plan, had never seen Polly or her family, nor followed them. Inside, he searched for valuables, but found only a few items of interest. Just as he was about to leave, Polly unexpectedly opened her bedroom door and saw him. Recognizing her fear, Richard decided to take her with him. He placed Polly in his vehicle and drove away, eventually stopping at an empty lot where he assaulted her. After this incident, he resumed driving, and when the woman and her babysitter saw Richard on private property, police officers assisted him in freeing his vehicle from the mud. Polly was still alive at that moment, which frustrated law enforcement officers who believed her life could have been saved. Later, Richard stated he drove along the highway, where he strangled Polly, dug a grave, and left her body there. On December 4th, 1993, Richard provided police with the exact location of the grave, leading to a search. 2 months and 3 days after her disappearance, her remains were found on the roadside in a grave Richard had dug himself. Forensic analysis confirmed that her cause of death was strangulation, aligning with Richard's own account. Although additional details were not precisely determined, it was understood her death occurred around the time she vanished. Based on all evidence, Richard was tried for kidnapping, murder, and assault related to Polly. During the trial, he had the opportunity to speak, offering an apology to her family, but also making a serious accusation against Polly's father, claiming he had abused her. Richard said she had told him, "Don't do to me what my father does," which caused Polly's father to react angrily, nearly confronting him physically, though others restrained him. His words shocked everyone, not only because of the accusation, but also because no one believed Polly's father had committed such acts. Although unproven, Polly's former partner defended him. On June 18, 1996, Richard was convicted of kidnapping and murder. In August of that year, he was sentenced to death. He attempted to challenge this sentence, but was unsuccessful. In 2006, after overdosing on pills in his cell, he was found unconscious but was revived and returned to prison. His lawyer later appealed his conviction to the Supreme Court, but the appeal failed and the court upheld his death sentence. His attorney mentioned plans for further legal challenges, but despite these efforts, Richard has remained on death row for many years without execution, with hopes that all legal avenues will eventually be exhausted. In the coming years, Amy Widener's life was poised for profound change, with her future unfolding as planned. Her journey into motherhood began unexpectedly when she gave birth to a daughter at a very young age, a challenge that deeply tested her mother, Gloria Whitner. Despite the emotional strain, Gloria remained a steadfast supporter, providing unwavering support through her daughter's early struggles. Little did Gloria realize that the difficulties of managing Amy's pregnancy would soon be overshadowed by an even more devastating family crisis. Born in 1973, Amy was part of a large family that included her older brother, John Paul, who was just a year her senior, and 2 younger sisters, Cassie and another sibling, who were 1 and 4 years younger respectively. Their mother, Gloria Whitner, had raised her children alone following a divorce from their father, who had no role in their upbringing. Residing in Indianapolis, the family relied heavily on Amy, who was her mother's primary helper, managing household chores and caring for her sisters. Amy dreamed of becoming a teacher, known for her cheerful disposition and captivating smile. However, at the age of 14, Amy's life took an unexpected turn when she became pregnant. Initially reluctant to tell her mother, she concealed her growing belly under loose clothing for over 5 months. As her pregnancy became harder to hide, Amy finally found the courage to confide in Gloria, breaking down in tears. "Mom, I don't want you to hate me," she whispered. Gloria, stunned by the revelation, embraced her daughter and offered comforting words, though she felt overwhelmed and uncertain about what lay ahead. Later, Gloria recalled, "I was stunned. I just couldn't believe it. I thought it was the worst thing that could happen in my life." Unbeknownst to them, even more heartbreaking events loomed. Amy's baby was fathered by Tony Abba, a friend of her older brother, a relationship kept secret from their family until Amy's pregnancy was revealed. Gloria swiftly intervened, forbidding Amy from maintaining any contact with Tony and setting strict boundaries for her future interactions with the father of her child. On October 25, 1987, Amy welcomed her daughter Emily into the world. Remarkably, just 6 days after giving birth, she returned to her studies, balancing the responsibilities of motherhood with her education. Gloria, recognizing the importance of Amy's future, provided constant support by caring for Emily so Amy could attend school. She also understood the need for Amy to enjoy a normal teenage life, allowing her to spend time with friends. Amy's dedication to her studies remained strong, and she continued to excel academically, earning praise from her teachers for her perseverance and hard work. As the family adjusted to their new reality, life seemed to be improving, and Amy was successfully overcoming her challenges. Yet, just as stability appeared within reach, a sudden tragedy struck. On November 13, 1989, 16-year-old Amy awoke with a severe sore throat and decided to stay home from school with her 2-year-old daughter Emily. When Gloria offered to take Emily to the nanny's house, Amy chose to keep her daughter with her. After sharing breakfast, the family dispersed for the day. Gloria headed to work, and Amy's siblings went to school, leaving Amy and Emily alone at home. Concern grew when multiple calls to Amy went unanswered, raising fears about their safety. Early in the evening, Gloria grew increasingly concerned when her neighbor reported that the house was unusually silent and unresponsive. Fearing something was wrong, she left her workplace and hurried home. Upon arrival, she found Emily, her 2-year-old daughter, sitting quietly on the stairs, unresponsive to her calls. Worry mounting, Gloria decided to check upstairs. The sight that greeted her was devastating. Amy, her older sister, was lying motionless on her bed, unclothed and surrounded by a significant amount of blood. The scene was both tragic and haunting, forever etched in her memory. Immediately, Gloria called emergency services. When the police arrived, they began a thorough investigation of the Widener residence. The initial evidence suggested a possible break-in, as stereo equipment and a graphic equalizer belonging to Amy's older brother John were missing. Also stolen was a small glass jar piggy bank containing roughly $50 saved for school. Interestingly, there were no signs of forced entry. Perhaps the perpetrator entered through an unlocked back door or was let in by Amy herself. Crucial evidence was discovered at the scene, a bloody palm print on the bed linens and wall, along with several strands of hair from the victim and the assailant. The medical examiner determined that Amy had been struck on the head with a sharp object, sexually assaulted, and ultimately strangled. The case was further complicated by the fact that Emily, Amy's young daughter, might have witnessed some of these traumatic events. Fortunately, Emily was unharmed. Recognizing the importance of any information Emily could provide, police made efforts to communicate with her despite her tender age. Using finger puppets to create a child-friendly environment, investigators gently asked her what she remembered. Emily, energetic and restless, only mentioned that her mother had appeared very angry that day, offering limited but potentially valuable details. As part of their investigation, authorities sectioned off and removed the wall segment bearing the bloody palm print. They also collected Amy's clothing and bed linens to analyze further. To uncover more about Amy's life and possible motives, detectives questioned her family, friends, and neighbors. Her 17-year-old brother, John Paul, was initially suspected but had a solid alibi, and no evidence linked him to the crime. Tony, Amy's former boyfriend and Emily's father, was also interviewed. He expressed strong affection for Amy and denied any involvement, with a confirmed alibi for the day of the murder. Attention then turned to Troy Jackson, who lived next door. He was aware of the stolen stereo system but denied any participation. Although he had no visible injuries, he provided hair samples that did not match those found at the scene. After passing a polygraph test, Troy's involvement was considered unlikely, but investigators continued their search for answers. Suspicions against him were eventually dismissed, leaving only 3 individuals under police scrutiny. Investigators also questioned other acquaintances, neighbors, and classmates of Amy, collecting fingerprints and hair samples from each, but none matched the evidence or raised further doubts. Amy Widener's funeral soon took place, drawing a large crowd of mourners eager to honor her memory. Her passing deeply affected the community, and detectives attended the service, carefully observing all attendees as part of their ongoing investigation. A particularly touching keepsake was a photograph of Amy wearing her favorite white turtleneck vest adorned with floral patterns, a cherished image of the young girl whose life was tragically cut short. In the wake of her death, Amy's family clung to hope that her attacker would be quickly caught and brought to justice. However, as days turned into weeks and then months, no new suspects emerged. Following Amy's passing, Gloria Widner legally adopted her granddaughter Emily, stepping into the role of mother once again. The grief and fear weighed heavily on Gloria, who was haunted by worries about her family's safety and the whereabouts of the perpetrator. She never left her daughters alone at home, living in a constant state of anxiety. With the suspect still at large, Gloria even contemplated moving to a new residence for safety, but financial limitations kept them in their current home, forcing them to navigate these difficult times with resilience. Amy's friends also felt the impact of the tragedy profoundly, their fears heightened by the possibility that the perpetrator might target others. In response, they and their families took precautions, reinforcing their homes and even boarding up windows with planks to prevent a similar fate. One day, Gloria returned home expecting her younger daughters to be back from school, only to be met with an unsettling silence. The house felt unusually empty, and she noticed the girls' outdoor shoes in their usual place. A wave of dread swept over her as she moved upstairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. Standing at the doorway of her daughter's bedroom, Gloria steeled herself for what she might find. To her relief, she discovered that her daughters had simply fallen asleep and no harm had come to them. As Emily grew older, she was spared the memories of her biological mother's tragic death, having no recollection of police interrogations or the circumstances surrounding Amy's passing. The detectives continued to revisit the Wagner family periodically, inadvertently forcing them to relive the pain of that dreadful day. Over time, Gloria found these repeated visits increasingly difficult to endure. She longed for her family to find peace and for the authorities to cease reawakening memories that could never bring Amy back. 13 years after Amy Wagner's death in 2002, an unexpected development emerged in the case, offering a glimmer of hope that perhaps justice might still be within reach. The Indianapolis Police Department received a call from a Dvadsat Deviat-year-old man claiming to have had a dream in which Amy communicated with him about her death. Although he shared details about the incident, most of this information had already been reported in the media. Authorities investigated this individual, who was 16 at the time of the event and lived across the street from Amy's home. His fingerprints and DNA were analyzed to check for any connection, but no matches were found, leading to his release. While his call did not provide concrete evidence, it prompted detectives to revisit the cold case. In 2002, the investigation was renewed by reconnecting with some of Amy's friends and acquaintances, especially those who had encountered legal issues over the years. Despite these efforts, progress stalled, and the case remained unresolved. Interest was reignited in 2011 when a Facebook group titled Remembering Amy was created by her friends, bringing new attention to her unsolved disappearance. The lead detective, unfamiliar with social media, enlisted colleague detective Bill Carter to print out information from the group. This task sparked Carter's curiosity about Amy's case. Although Carter's expertise was in different criminal areas, he felt compelled to explore the case during his free time. He meticulously examined every detail in the case files, reevaluating evidence and reviewing school attendance records from the day of the incident. He also studied the funeral attendance list and entered case details into a database, uncovering overlooked leads. Among these were several friends of Amy's brother who had never been interviewed or had their DNA collected. In his pursuit of new information, Carter reached out to Amy's family and friends in 2011, requesting names of individuals who might have relevant details. He initiated DNA testing of people previously ignored during the initial investigation. After the crime, authorities had canvassed the neighborhood where the Wares lived, documenting residents' names. While Amy's longtime friends provided useful information, she also mentioned an unfamiliar name to Carter, Rodney Dink. In 2012, Carter received approval from the cold case unit to formally take on Amy Wagner's case. His first step was to locate Rodney Dink to determine whether he could be a potential suspect. The Widener family knew Rodney well, as he was a friend of Amy's older brother, John Paul. They often spent time together engaging in activities like biking and fishing. When Carter inquired about Rodney with John Paul, he described him as a reserved individual who kept mostly to himself and had never raised suspicion. Carter then visited Rodney Dink's home, where the 40-year-old resided with his mother near the Widers' residence. Rodney, a former employee at an auto parts store, had been divorced for some time and maintained only minimal contact with his grown son. When Carter arrived at Rodney's residence, his mother greeted him and mentioned that Rodney was at work. Carter left his contact details, requesting Rodney to get in touch once he returned that evening. Later, Rodney called Carter, who immediately arranged a meeting to discuss the case of Amy Wagg's murder. Rodney agreed to meet and permitted Carter to visit his home, but when Carter returned for their appointment, Rodney was no longer there. Investigating further, Carter reviewed Rodney's criminal history, discovering prior charges for assault in 1991 and theft in 1997. Since Rodney's fingerprints were already stored in the database, they were compared with a palm print found at the crime scene. This comparison aimed to either link Rodney to the crime or clear him. The results confirmed a match between Rodney's prints and the bloody palm print at the scene, finally identifying a suspect after more than 23 years. However, Rodney had disappeared from his residence, prompting a thorough police search. The breakthrough came when authorities traced Rodney's credit card activity, revealing a rented vehicle equipped with an OnStar tracking system. This led detectives to Indianapolis, where Rodney was hiding. While at a friend's house, Rodney was confronted by police, who found him wielding a knife and claiming innocence. During the confrontation, Rodney injured himself while attempting to attack officers, but was subdued with a taser, handcuffed, and transported to the hospital. Over a 2-day recorded interrogation, Rodney confessed to Amy Wagg's murder. He initially explained that his intent was merely to break into the house and that he hadn't expected Amy to be there due to her illness. He recounted entering through a sliding glass door and being startled by Amy, whom he claimed he struck in a panic with the nearest object, resulting in her death. Throughout the interview, Rodney often mentioned his vague memory of the events, attributing his haziness to the 23 years that had passed since the crime. His account lacked specific details. At one point, he even suggested he had visited the house with an acquaintance he called Bag. However, he struggled to recall any clear description of this person or their appearance. Rodney claimed that Bag had initially watched outside before joining him inside, where they confronted Amy. When asked about Emily's presence during the incident, Rodney insisted he saw neither her nor her cries, remaining unaware that she had been nearby throughout. Throughout the interrogation, Rodney maintained a calm and polite demeanor, showing no signs typically associated with guilt, possibly influenced by the long passage of time since the crime. His DNA was collected, and as expected, it matched the evidence found at the scene. In Adna Tisiacha Deviat Sot Vosum Desiat Deviat, a discovery on Amy Wagner's bedding shocked the Wagner family, revealing Rodney's guilt in a heinous act. The revelation was a devastating blow, forcing them to reconcile the image of Rodney as a quiet, unassuming neighbor with the brutal crime he committed. Rodney was not only Amy's older brother and John Paul's friend and classmate, but also lived nearby and often visited their home. Remarkably, he had even attended Amy's funeral, mourning alongside others and offering condolences to her mother, Gloria Wagner. Later, Detective Carter found Rodney's signature in the guest book at the funeral, deepening the mystery. Revisiting the case, Carter discovered that Rodney's name first appeared in DVE Tisiachi Tree, mentioned by Tony Abami, Amy's former boyfriend and Emily's biological father. Tony noted Rodney's regular visits to the Wagner family, yet at the time of the crime, Rodney had evaded suspicion entirely. He was neither considered a suspect nor questioned. It wasn't until DVE Tisiachi Dvanatsat that further investigation into Rodney's background uncovered a disturbing detail. His biological son, Dylan Dank, was imprisoned for a crime committed in DVE Tisiachi Deviat when he was just 16. Dylan had fatally assaulted his birth mother, Mary McHenry, claiming she had abused him. Using a baseball bat, he inflicted fatal injuries, and Mary succumbed to her wounds. Dylan was just days past his 17th birthday when the incident occurred. The parallel between father and son, both involved in serious crimes at similar ages, struck detectives as particularly unsettling. Despite having little involvement in Dylan's upbringing due to an early divorce, Rodney appeared at Dylan's trial in DVE Tisiachi Deviat and accepted a plea deal, resulting in a 20-year prison sentence. Dylan is expected to be released in DVE Tisiachi Dvadsat Deviat when he will be 37. Throughout the investigation into Amy's case, Rodney initially claimed he had an accomplice, a young man. However, in June DVE Tisiachi Trinatsat, just 10 days before his trial, Rodney recanted, asserting he had acted alone. His confession, combined with the evidence against him, led to a sentence of 65 years in prison. The Wagner family marked the 24th anniversary of Amy's death by releasing 24 balloons into the sky, symbolizing their ongoing remembrance. They also expressed gratitude for Detective Carter's crucial role. Within just 12 days of starting the case, he identified Rodney as the perpetrator and brought the investigation to a close. In recognition of his exceptional work, Carter received an award from the Indianapolis Police Department in January of 2014. Despite an offer to join the homicide unit, he chose to remain in his current role. Amy's daughter Emily grew into adulthood and graduated from college, carrying her mother's memory forward. Amy's mother, Gloria, had attended the same high school as her daughter before deciding to pursue further studies at a university. Hoping for new opportunities, she moved from Indianapolis to California. Throughout her life, Gloria has openly expressed her ongoing sorrow and daily memories of Amy. She continues to live in the house where the tragedy occurred, with Amy's room still decorated with her photographs. Recently, this space has begun to welcome Gloria's grandchildren during holiday visits, bringing a renewed sense of happiness to a place once overshadowed by grief.